Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Y'all are brewheads? Yeah, we brewheads. So pour a glass of craft beer, we can do this. Yeah.
What's good, y'all? This is Cee, certified brewhead.
And I am Nathan from NathanDoesBeer.
And welcome to episode 163 of Beer Not Shit, the podcast Adjunct series. Nathaniel, welcome back. I feel like it's been a few episodes.
Yeah, it's been a couple of weeks. Because the last time I was on was when we did Third Moon a couple of weeks ago.
Yes, okay. So I knew I had... Okay. I'm thinking maybe all the ones that have been released. We had a bit of a run where you weren't there for a bit. Mm-hmm. Oh, we had a week off. That's why it feels like forever. Okay. Well, I know you're under the weather, so I know you're almost there.
Yep, I'm almost there. I'm good enough for tonight.
That's all you need. It's been a rough one in me, too. I feel like I'm just still on the precipice almost at all times. I'm always like kind of paranoid that I'm going to fucking get sick again.
Just like right on the edge.
Oh, man, it just won't go away. I don't know. I feel like I'm seeing it everywhere, though. Like everyone's saying.
Oh, my God. Yeah. It's hitting everyone this winter. It's brutal. Never ending.
But it's also the mildest winter we've ever had. Well, at least I have in Canada. In February, it was 12 degrees here the other day.
Yeah.
Insane. So bonkers. Anyway, we're not a old people podcast here. Talking about the weather, Nathaniel. But this evening is the long-awaited return of one of our favorite breweries in the entire country.
Yep.
And it is very remiss of us to not have had this brewery back on since we had, I think it was November 2020 was the last time, which is funny you mentioned Third Moon. This is the Quebec brewery birthday twin of Third Moon. And both Third Moon and this brewery were on around the same time. I think Third Moon were late October and this is beginning of November or something.
What you mean when when they were on for the pods?
Yeah, I think the first time we did both of them were around the same time, and then
right.
hadn't had a return, and they're two of our favorites, which is just I don't know what the fuck was wrong with us, but we're making up for it. God damn it! So these guys have won the Quebec Brewery of the Year in our top 10 favorite breweries in Quebec between BAOS, Vox and Hops, Beerism, and now NathanDoesBeer. They have won that 2 years in a row. Yes. We had to give them a rest this year, or probably the whole province will be mad at them. But just genuinely one of the best breweries, some of the best people I know in beer, and there's nothing they can do wrong in our eyes. I just feel it's legit, and I feel like anyone who goes there says the same thing. So let's bring it right on. So guys, please welcome Jacob Barrette of Cee and Nate in the brew.
Welcome, friend.
What's up, guys? How's it going?
Wonderful, sir. How are you? Great to see you.
I'm doing great. Nice to see you guys as well. It's been a while.
It has, man. It's apologies for that. I know you have been on twice since, though. To be fair, once was Link Up and once was the beer tasting we did with Michelle Fan.
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel like forever. It's kind of like you've been on every year anyway, but still, we're not going to let this happen again. But bro, thank you for hanging out. Stoked to have you back and really just sort of do a proper catch up as to what's been happening with Cee over the last 3 years and change. I imagine a lot has changed, and even just the things I can think of off the top of my head, there's been a bunch. I'm sure we'll go deep. But just before we get started, let's crack a brewski, shall we, boys?
Yes.
All right.
This is Faye. This was the first beer I ever had on tap at Cee personally when I went in 2020. The Moines Helles Lager, an unbeatable banger. Very happy that this has. Is this a flagship? Probably not. Right? It's only Citaden's the flagship. Or
so
core?
it's not a flagship. It's our lager program. We like all of our lagers take 8 weeks to produce. And for financial reasons, we've only consecrated one or designated 120 barrel fermenter to our lagers. There's Citadin, our Czech pills, which is honestly, we tried to make Stade our flagship, but the demand in both in cans and the accounts we need to keep feeding on tap just make it so that it's rarer that we have it available in cans.
Gotcha.
But Dame One is, and actually 3 of the beers we're gonna have tonight are 3 of our original recipes, which we were brewing. And I'm sorry in advance, I got the sniffles. But yeah, three of those beers have been beers we've been brewing since 3 years prior to opening. So it's been about 7 years since we've been brewing. Day one was one of them.
Wow.
So it's one of my personal favorites that we do at the brewery.
Hell yeah, dude. It's looking gorgeous. Like the clarity on this thing is
Sure is, and the
ridiculous.
nose is wild too.
Oof.
Yeah, I'm not getting much of a nose on it right now, but and the thinking with Dame One when we started talking about that beer was, um, we're sort of seeing like the industry right now up in Canada trying to go more towards sessionable lagers.
Mm.
And I was seeing that happening. I've always been a huge fan of lagers. So I always paid attention to like obviously the European lager scene, which is, where it all pretty much originates from. But then what was going on in the US, and I just saw everybody kind of brewing a pills. Like it was just like pills, pills, pills. I maybe the natural sort of going from hoppy beers. What's the hoppiest kind of lager that we can produce? Which is Pilsner is more on the hoppy side of things. And I was like, man, it'd be really nice to have a sort of steady Eddie Helles Lager, just because I find them a bit more approachable, not as hop forward. So for consumers that are coming from the macro beer world, this can be a more approachable beer style. So, and we've actually, sorry, had some success with both, beer enthusiasts with that beer, and also in converting previous macro sort of lagers and finding some finer details in this brew.
Love it, man. That's actually a great explanation. I didn't realize that, but that makes complete sense. First and foremost,
Yeah.
boys, cheers. Jacob, once again,
Cheers.
welcome. Great to see you both. Cheers, cheers, cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Mm. It's beautiful, man. Yeah, the nose is just so malty and bready. Wicked body. It's just so crisp and smooth. Every time, it's just like that perfect little. Like, I see what you mean, though, Jacob. Like, it's like everything that you want in a Helles lager that's not going to be. Like, a Pilsner might be a little rough for a domestic lager drinker to sort of transfer across, whereas this is not like, it's not too bitter, like you were saying. It's like super balanced,
Yeah.
approachable,
And then
dry.
the trick with the Helles, or the problem often, is I'll find a lot of them are like cloyingly sweet. Not cloyingly sweet. It's still like a 5%, four and some change beer, but some of them tend to go
5, yeah.
too sweet.
Gotcha.
And those more delicate beers, you got to really make sure everything is sort of where it needs to be, because it can get too sweet too fast, or too hoppy too fast, too bitter too fast. So it's really an exercise of precision and obtaining the actual notes you want to get from that beer. So, and those are beers. I mean, I listened to some of your last few episodes, and one thing we try to do when we bring back those beers is that we kind of usually have a period of the first 3 times we brew a beer where there's little things we need to iron out from our pilot system to the first big batch. Like, that scaling up sort of brings its own challenges, and then we'll either decide to sort of not pursue that recipe anymore or refine it. And then by the third time, usually it's pretty much where it needs to be at. So this is a beer, whenever we, it has its fans. Whenever we put it out, there's specific people that show up at the brewery for it. And there's accounts, Vice Versa in Montreal are big fans of that beer. Like, just,
Sick.
let us know whenever that's available. And so yeah, we love it.
That's awesome, man. Go on, Nate.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, talking about how the pills could sometimes perhaps be a bit overwhelming for for someone converting from more domestic lagers. Like the pills is more bitter, a bit sharper.
Gracia.
Yeah. Whereas and the Helles by nature will be sweeter than a lot of pills, and like you were saying, Jacob, some of them can actually go pretty intense on the sweetness, but this one is excuse me, really nice and balanced on that front. It's got a bit of kind of that honey sweetness up front, but I find it really dries out towards towards the finish quite nice, but without the bitterness or kind of sharp bite from the that you might get with the pills as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's got a nice, dry finish. You're ready for the next sip, but it's not that, that hoppy sort of bitterness, sharpness that's saying from the Pilsner. And in saying that, there's different Pilsners as well. So you can have one from a brewery where it's super hop forward, and another, I mean, even with us, if you have Petite France and you have Two Tails Pils, there's, a different,
very different
flavor
experience.
profiles. Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people, it's a Pils is a Pils. Well, okay, if you sit down and you put 5 pills in front, I put 5 pills in front of you, you'll definitely, maybe you don't notice it when you're having just a 1 pills a week or whatever. But if I put 5 pilsners in front of you, we'd be able to point out the differences and, where you want to go with it, so to speak. So
I like that. And it's something that you guys have really leaned into over the last, obviously one of the first beers ever was the Two Tails Pils, which is probably to this day still my favorite beer from you, I would say, aside from Lucide Dream. But the volume of Pilsners and just Crispies in general, that whole umbrella that you've been releasing over the last few years is just glorious. And I was able to attend, I think it was the 2022 Oktoberfest, and you had all of them on there. It was wicked, like Black, the Schwarzbier, Petit France, the Alsatian one, the French one, tell me what else I'm missing. Citadin, there's Des Moines, there's Two Tails.
We probably had our Vienna lager.
What was the Vienna called again? Starts with B, right?
Belvedere?
Belvedere, yeah.
Love that one. And you did a Dunkel recently, I think, too.
Yeah, Benedict, we've done that one a couple of times.
And you would have had
so
Cobes there, too.
Cobes, of course.
Cobus was there.
Cobus, sorry.
Hars, our
the Goza.
sort of basic German Gozas was there as well. And then we had some guests that we usually invite a few guests every year for, variety and friends and whatnot. So, yeah.
It's just really cool to see. And I know you've always been a Pils, like a crispy guy, as you kind of were speaking to earlier. I wasn't always. I sort of was converted, I don't know, 2019-ish maybe or something like that, a lot more, and started looking for them a lot more. And I just really appreciate the way you guys approach them because, like I said, you were just saying that there's this unfair perception that they're Crispies are crispy, and they're all those ones we all just mentioned are so incredibly different. Obviously, the darker ones do their thing, and you can tell. But from all the lighter ones, they are so different, and it just really speaks to Dimitri, who is one of the partners in the brewer, like the skill set and being able to differentiate all of these different ones so exquisitely and make them all such so unique. Because of what you were referring to earlier, Jacob, with we've been talking a lot about bringing things back, which is something that I personally love. So then I like the recipes that are tweaked, and maybe you can't get it all the time, but when it comes back, you're excited about it. And I think you guys have really done that with the Crispies, whether it's intentional or not, due to the tank space. But it's kind of works out well. And then when sometimes they'll bank up and you'll have a bunch, and sometimes there might only be a couple. It's wicked.
Yeah. Well, yes and no. With I think there's a segment of the market that's always looking for newness. They want new brands, new beers, new whatever. But with the lagers, or at least the way we do it, we feel, with those styles, we're more inspired by European brews. And, Pilsner Urquell doesn't have 15 different Pilsners. You have the one where it's, so we're sort of approaching it in that way, and I want the one to be known as, a banger Helles, and I would be doing that beer a disservice if we tried creating a different one with a different flavor profile that we don't really need, and so it'd just be new shit for the sake of new shit. And even if you look at IPAs, if you look at even just hazies, take a bunch of 7% hazies, and I mean, they'll all taste the same way the Pilsners all taste the same. You got to really sit almost through them, and you got to be interested in the styles, obviously, which is, and I'm not, I prefer lagers. They're not the only thing I drink, but but it's not to pass judgment on any style, but it's just that, every style has its own sort of variety and flavor wheel and whatever. So they're all fun. You just got to find what you like and then see the various sort of products available in that range.
No, that's a cool way to look at it. The being that like where you are in Aylmer, which is like a super cute small town, beautiful main street. What's the like? How do people respond? I know that from what you've said and from being there, that the local community are extraordinarily supportive and just represent local really hard. And Quebec does that so damn well. Particularly now, I've been out in Ontario for a solid year and a half. Like I'm seeing the difference with the way Quebec reps for local. How do people respond then to, in the world of craft beer, there's a bit of an expectation of kind of what you were talking about with the haze and stuff like that, which you do exceptionally well. How do people sort of respond to, say, the Crispies, like having that many of a variety or that much of a variety? That is it like confusing for some people, or is it the opposite? Is it almost more welcoming for those gateway folks who are just sort of not sure, but then at least there's 5 beers that kind of look like the one they're coming from, so then they're a little more open-minded? I'm just curious that if people respond, like how they would respond to sort of a craft brewery doing that breadth of Crispies.
Yeah, so we weren't inspired by sort of like IPA centric breweries. Like our influences got like I think the thing I prefer the most is longevity. And the thing that impresses me most with a lot of breweries is their longevity and how do they achieve that. So I think for us, it was always looking at how can we make this product or these various products approachable to people who, because whenever you get in an industry where it's super nerdy, it can easily become scary for people to sort of go in and ask questions. And we wanted to take all of that away and sort of like just come on in, let us know what you like, let us know what you don't like, let us know why you don't like beer, and then we'll try to find something. And then we all, the three partners, Stephen, Dimitri, and myself, we all sort of met through L'Autreuil, which is a beer bar here in Aylmer. I think they have 44 taps. And there's just this wide, and that's not counting, the bottles and the cellar. But there was just always, that's where we went to drink and where we'd learn about beer and we'd get to try different things that weren't available, especially back then. You think 25 years ago. Now, I'm not saying I was legal drinking age, but I was getting close. So we kind of grew up in that, like Belgian beers and lagers and IPAs and whatever. So we had access to a lot of things. So Dimitri used to work there. I used to be there all the time. Stephen also, and even now with our staff, a lot of them worked there for a number of years before joining Céleste. So we were just always exposed, I think, to a wide variety of styles. There was a time for everything, and so we all kind of know what we're talking about and what we like with those styles. So whenever someone comes in and they feel like our 14 lines is a lot to pick from, we always curate our menu so that there's something for everyone. We'll always have like a red beer. We'll always have a couple of hazies, a couple of westies, a few lagers on tap, some sour stuff. So we keep our 14 lines quite diverse, so that we try not to overwhelm people with that. And then a lot of it has just been education over, it's going to be close to 4 years now. So, our brewery notes that we share whenever we post a new beer, we think that people take time to read those and figure out what they might enjoy. And so we've just tried to make it as easy as possible for people that might find it overwhelming. But the fact that there is so much means that they are going to find, we've kind of gotten that reputation that, you'll find something you like at Saint-Barreau with the locals, I mean, and I hope, beyond. But yeah, it's just a matter of curating the beer menu, presenting them well, and then wanting to chat with people when they come in and they've got questions. That's why we have our pub. That's a big thing for us, and it's a big part of beer culture, and so we use it to its full potential.
That's dope, man. I do, every time I've been there, the lines are very diverse. You are right. And we will very much go into depth about the Westies, which if anyone has listened or watched before, Nathan and I are passionately expressing our fandom of those beers. So it's cool. I feel like, okay, so it's, even over the last pushing 4 years then, what do you think the public at large knows you for? Like, are you the brewery that, like, because I've got some idea. I won't say what I think, but I feel like there's a multiple answers to that question. I'd like to hear what you both think. Like, what do you think the brew, from when it started and what you came out as to now?
Yeah.
4 years is a long time, and you opened in the most challenging times and got through. It's just never ending, these challenges, it seems. Like, what do you think? You sort of saying, Kim, when people think of the brewery, like, what do they think of?
So that's a tough question to answer, and I've told people before, like, the weirdest thing, because I was like a big beer guy, and I wasn't working in beer before Cinquième Baron, but I would travel and visit breweries, and I got a vibe of every different brewery that I visited, and this is like the biggest thing with having your own brewery is you don't get to sort of experience it as the same way you would if you were a consumer, if that makes sense. It's kind of like if you're going out to dinner and a chef is making dinner for you, you'll enjoy the meal. If you're cooking for others, you'll put the meal on the table and you'll just kind of like, are they going to like it? Are they, so it's kind of that vibe. So I'll never get a full feel for what it is we've created as I would have if I were just a consumer.
That's fair.
But it's hard to say. I don't know. I think what we want to be is we want to be a dependable brewery. Like, we want to be a brewery that if we put out Munich style Helles, then anyone you ask can tell you, oh, well, if you want to try a really good Munich style Helles, grab the Cinquième Baron. And if you want to grab a really good of this, grab... So we're hoping to do that for all of those styles. But other than that, I mean, I don't know. I think... Man, I don't know. You guys would need to tell me, because we're, like I said, it's really hard. It's really
that's
hard
fair.
to get a full feel for how people experience it.
Well, I can give you my thoughts on that, because as I'm just across the river from you guys, and you're obviously one of my local haunts, so I can speak to it from the consumer side, and what I think I describe you for to my friends and people who aren't involved in the beer scene. It's kind of exactly what you were just describing before, which is you're the brewery that has something for everyone, and how that has played out. For me myself, it's one of those things that, like Craig already alluded to, is our absolute love of Westies. I can't think of anywhere else that I can go and be absolutely guaranteed that I can pull up to the bar and have a West Coast IPA on tap. Whereas I know that there will at the very least be one or two, on one of the lines at Cinquième Baron. So that's something that I know that I can go there for. And when I've brought other people there, it's been a case of knowing what their tastes are. If if lagers are more their thing, like they'll definitely you'll definitely have one or two of those, something that'll definitely fit the bill for them. And even when I'm bringing people there who aren't huge beer folks, but are willing to try something, like I've brought my parents there before. My dad will drink a beer every now and then, but is not a big drinker, but he is kind of looking for something that tastes like beer. So it's one of the times that he was there, like he just wants me to pick for him. So I went and grabbed Petite France, which happened to be on tap at the time, and that being like a nice light 4.2 percenter, was right on the money for that. So it is the place that, like, no matter who you bring there, no matter what their beer taste is, there's going to be something for them there.
But not in a way that's like, because sometimes that can be a bad thing. Like a brewery that isn't known for something can often be like they try a bit of everything and maybe some work and some don't. I feel like I think there's three answers to this question. I was just curious, and thank you for that too, Nate. I definitely agree with all of them, but I feel like the first answer is yes, there is something for everybody, but I would say the addition to that is like, or taking it further, is kind of what we said on the top 10 Quebec thing, whereas like, you name the style from Saint-Kiem, it's going to be world-class, elite-level shit of that style. I can't think of another brewery in the States, in Canada, anywhere that I've personally been or experienced that has that level of like, that level of confidence that like, there is...
Fox Farm Brewery is.
I've heard of them. They do the same. They do similar shit. Okay.
They're in Connecticut. I think.
Connecticut.
But they're a brewery that's really, I'm always super impressed with what they do. But yeah, sorry, didn't mean to.
No, that's a good one. And I probably would think like Treehouse when I went there, that everyone knows them for their haze. But like, I had some exceptional pilsners. They even like, they're dropping, you name the style, like everything, red ales and barley wines and stouts, and their coffee is great. I bought some of the coffee beans. I think I have the bag up there somewhere. And the they do like canned coffee and stuff. They're like, yeah, okay, fair enough. But say in Canada, then it's just so exceptional. But then the other two things I would say that would be fair would be the Westies and the Crispies, because of the breadth of selection. Like Crispies, there definitely are other breweries that do whatever, like crispy focused breweries. You know, you can already think of the ones everywhere that do that for sure, no problem. But you guys definitely do that amongst, while offering the same amount probably of New England IPAs, and the same with Westies. And I think the Westies is essentially, I'm sure you could probably say that I'm wrong or missing something here, but like unheard of as far as the sheer volume. Like I haven't been to Sierra Nevada or something like that, or Stone, or I guess I mean in 2024, who else has what, 10, 12 different, very different, more West Coast IPAs? Maybe 20? How many are there?
Fuck, I don't know. Because we've got our, sort of American Pale Ales that could fall in that category. We've got the whole
that's what I'm talking about.
Series that's like more traditional, SRM and whatnot. And then you got our American IPA kind of series, which is all like the California landmarks.
That's the same neighborhood. Yeah, that's the same neighborhood for,
I would say that.
For us, yeah.
That means it must be 20 to 30 at least.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to check. We've got quite a bit, and then you've got the doubles. The Sitka's Double Douglas Winter Walk.
Sequoia.
Yeah, Sequoia, a really good one. So yeah, we've got quite a few of them, and I mean the response has been great. And for us, it's more, we're not. I don't think we're the biggest consumers of New England IPAs at the brewery.
Okay.
Like if you, like everyone working there, that I can't think of anyone that's their like go-to style or the thing that moves the most. But our thing is to brew beers that have a tremendous amount of merit. And with New England IPAs, man, it's hear a lot of people like it hazes out and it's all about the West Coast, and it's like, well, I think in 10, 20 years, we're going to turn around and say the hazy thing did a lot for the craft beer industry. It brought a lot of attention. So you got to be able to, recognize a classic as it's happening as well. But as far as us at the brewery, we're more of, I think lagers, a lot of Belgian stuff. We love Belgian beers. We don't brew a lot of them, but we love Belgian beers. And then, the American IPA series has been a big something that we're really happy with. And I think we usually ask around the brewery, like, what was your favorite beer of last year? Of the new recipes that came in. And for me, it was going to California. Like I brought a case home, and I'm still picking one out every now and then. But that whole series, I think, and the whole inspiration behind it And we had been trying to get those recipes down for quite some time, but there seems to be a gap from the early West Coast IPAs to the haze, with old school IPAs, and then even some new school sort of New England IPAs. When you think of what the Alchemist and Lawson's was and is doing, they were, I guess, New England IPAs in terms of they were more aromatic than West Coast IPAs, but they weren't like hazy either, the way we know the Treehouse and Trilliums and Bissell's and all those. So that was like sort of a moment in time in beer that something was changing, and those beers were there, and they were I mean, they're still there, but we don't see a lot of breweries sort of develop IPAs in that way to where you can get a bit more of a maltier backbone. I'm thinking of Sip of Sunshine, and sort of a nice mix between not just dry hopping. You can still get a bit of bitterness. And then with those beers is and that's why I picked up a case of going to California, you can really get to experience what hops were meant for anyway, right? Which is preserving beer. They weren't meant for that, but they were used that way. And so I'm having fun sort of picking one up, 2 months down the road, 3 months down the road, and you realize that, an IPA has different flavor profiles throughout like the hop life, so to speak. And it's super interesting. There's a lot of aromatics, there's bitterness, and then there's a maltier backbone. So it's like having an older Celebration by Sierra Nevada, like I've had some 5-6 months later, and it's still fucking delicious. It's maltier, it's fruitier. It's not, it's sort of more, a bit more sweet, but it's a different sort of in a different curve of its evolution. So we love that style. It's something that I think people are noticing, that we're paying attention to that style and we're really focusing on it. So it's been a really nice success for us.
That's so cool, man. I love hearing that. And I know recently, like I think in the last few weeks, there was like the event on a Saturday. It was like a Westie event, Best Coast.
Yeah.
How many did
we
you...
had
Yeah, talk to us about that.
We had, I can't remember. We had 5 or 6 Westies on tap, and then we had 5 or 6 or 5 cans of stuff, and we were like, okay, let's just throw a West Coast event and sort of, because we don't like coming out and saying we're this brewery and whatever. So we try to sometimes put our message out in different ways, and it was like, hey, we really appreciate that style of beer, and you should too. But then we're such in a saturated market, and people are looking for a lot of buzzwords and certain styles, and we're just not that brewery. So we got to find ways to do it differently. And sometimes when people are used to a certain style, for example, West Coast IPAs, and they're not super familiar with them, then the best way to kind of learn about them is to sit down with 5 of them or buy 5 cans, and we do that a lot at the brewery in terms of developing recipes and where we want to aim. But sit down with like 4 or 5 of them and go through them, and you'll notice the differences, and you'll know why you like one more, and you find out about different hops and different malt bills and everything. So it's so those events are fun for that kind of stuff.
That's sick. Same question as earlier with regard to the Crispies, but for Westies now. So Crispies are one thing. They're pretty well known to be gateway beers, so it's not that much of a challenge. Some people don't like beer, so then maybe Crispies aren't going to be the one for them. But West Coast, the IPA, the original IPA, I guess, and the one that everyone, if they say, I don't like IPAs, they're too hoppy and bitter, blah, 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 that's what they're talking about. Being that you do so many, and you do them so exquisitely, and yeah, some are bitter and dank, but some are also floral and fruity, and really the bitterness is quite subtle and mellow. How do people respond to that, being that there seems, in 2024, there seems to be more, I was going to say pushback, but just sort of more of a like aversion through bullshit conditioning about what beer is to that specific style?
Yeah, that's... Well, I think we forget a lot about the industry as a whole, and we kind of focus on the last 10, 15 years where there has been sort of a craft beer boom, so to speak. But before all that, man, like people were drinking, pretty bitter and, really powerful IPAs. And I mean, that style hasn't gone anywhere. And I, I, I don't know. I can only speak for our brewery, but we seem to be connecting with those drinkers,
Right.
either because they're trusting us with the brand or the approach we have to it, or because we do put out so many and it sort of we've got one for everyone. But the response for us has been really good. Now I'm sure you'd talk to different breweries and they'd say we're not having the success and we gotta put out more of this to compensate or whatever. But for us, I think maybe 4 years in also, like people come to us wanting to try different things also. Yeah, that segment of the market is very much there. Like before the last, hazy 15 years, it was very much West Coast IPAs. And if we talk about Quebec, like our IPA was, when I was sort of drinking IPAs in Quebec, was, Yakima from Castor and
Yes.
Moralité from Dieu du Ciel, and those weren't hazies. And
No.
they were selling quite well, and people love those flavor profiles. Now, the more approachable hazies sort of came on later, but that doesn't mean, like if you like blue cheese and then, cheddar starts coming out, blue cheese lovers are still going to want blue cheese, So you got to have the blue cheese producers somewhere. And so I guess we're the blue cheese producers. So we just make those beers and connect with those drinkers. Our market, like I said, perhaps it's been L'Autre or whatever, but people around here seem to understand and relate to what we're doing, and the response has been really good. Like I said, I can't speak for different breweries. I can't speak for different markets. That's another big thing, I think, that how the market's going to respond. But yeah, it's, I think, a mix of them trusting what we do, and then they enjoy it. And again, there's if they visit us and we hit them with a West Coast IPA, and that's not their style, it's too bitter or whatever, then our draft menu is going to allow us to recommend something that's completely the opposite, or just something entirely different. So if we don't get them with that, we'll just get them with something else.
That makes sense.
Maybe you'll get them. Maybe you'll get them with a Céleste or something.
Oh, that's a segue right there, Nathaniel.
Yeah, there you go.
So we've been yapping about Westies, and we have touched on haze here, but this is the original pale ale that you opened with, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Céleste.
The classic, and also the first time I have personally seen it in the short cans, and I am.
Yeah, this is new.
I definitely want to talk about this because there's a few beers that we're having tonight, well, a couple at least, that are in the short cans. It's something that you guys only started to do relatively recently, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I mean, the short cans are more of a, like the economy is kind of bad right now, and we understand that expensive beer might not be everyone's priority right now, and so there's a sticker shock that comes sometimes with 473s that you can sort of play with a little bit with 355s. So yeah, we've been putting out a few 355s. Some of them we've been putting out in both formats. Céleste is one of them, actually.
Okay, both. I haven't. I'd like to hear the thinking of that. Like, I guess both, so that like both of the types of consumers who do want the larger format can get it, and then people who might just maybe either budget conscious or just like the shorter format are able to get that too. Is it kind of just to hit both?
Well, so Celeste has become like a full-time beer for us now. We really like this one because we came at a time in the market where, hazies were all the rage. And what we noticed that everyone was doing was they were either doing, New England IPAs, double New England IPAs, or triple New England IPAs.
Right.
And we just wanted to go the other way. Like, I wouldn't say we were the first ones by any means, sorry, to do hazy pale ale, but I think we might be among the first ones who really put like a full-time sort of effort behind it and make sure it stayed in the rotation. And then we always said that the market would let us know what our sort of flagship beers are, and that's one that just flies off the shelves for us.
I am not surprised at all.
That.
And with that, gentlemen, look at that beautiful haze. Get that in you.
Cheers.
Head is
Cheers.
wicked. Super bright nose. This one slaps
it's
every
not
time.
Yeah,
Go.
and it doesn't have too heavy of a body, which is something we were trying to be mindful of with that beer, just because we want you to drink it more like a sessionable beer, basically.
Yeah,
So we
sense.
didn't want it to be too heavy. So it's I don't know, it's just a beer that, and the can, the vibes just go. It's like a bright sun in a sunny sky can. Like, it was just a no-brainer for us, and that's one of the recipes where we worked at it for quite some time, even before opening. So one of our first beers that, that's been sort of in the rotation for the past 7 years. So yeah, we love that one. And it's becoming more available on tap in our area right now because it's something we offer full time. It's something that we want to, it does make beer accessible. It's a very approachable style, right? Like, we were just talking a few minutes ago about how hazies turned a lot of eyes onto craft beer. So for us, Céleste has been that beer that's been able to bring people in and discover more different styles.
That's awesome, man. And I guess it makes sense. I think I've told this before, but I feel like hazy, like New England IPAs, are more of a gateway beer, referring to what you just said, than they get credit for. Like, being that they typically don't have any bitterness and they are bright and tropical and fruity and they've got an interesting mouthfeel, and they're the complete antithesis of what people think of when they think of beer if they're not craft beer.
Exactly.
And it's a trip.
They're visually beautiful as well.
Yeah.
And I mean, the nose, it smells just like juice. So
Yeah. How can you
who
not like
wouldn't
it?
be? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and this one, like you were saying, it like it's not too heavy. I mean, and that's true. And it needs to not be too heavy. It's got to distinguish from from kind of the heftier backbone of a full 6.5-7% IPA, but. It's also not too light either, and not to try to tread ground that I've tread on so many other previous podcasts, but I like that. I don't like it when a pale ale starts to drink like a session IPA, and I think and this one really hits the right middle ground of lighter than an IPA, but not so light that it's drinking like a session.
Do you think that's because of the 5.5%?
5.5 seems pretty right on the money.
Is that why you think? I'm just curious to what about, and I agree wholeheartedly. I was just curious to what about this specifically puts it in that perfect middle ground. Aside, the ABV I think is part of it, but is it?
It's got to be part of
or?
it, but I think the texture is pretty big for me, and also the restrained bitterness. Because when I always find that when ABV starts to drop in IPAs and pale ales, the kind of citric acidity that comes off of so many of the hops tends to increase. It starts to get more pronounced as the body starts to get lighter. And the only thing that I can that I can kind of chalk that up to is that Dimitri is so fucking good with malt. And that is very that's very evident with his stouts, and we'll talk about that with a beer a little later on. But his skill with that, with getting the right body with malt, I could certainly see that translating with this beer as well. That even with the lower ABV, the that body that's coming off of the malt bill is just really balancing the beer out really nicely.
Yeah, and even water profile is a big thing as well. So each beer we spend time on water profiles and how to get everything just right, and especially like I was saying earlier, for those beers that are sort of mainstays in our portfolio, we make sure that's one actually where Céleste, when it came out, because we had been working at it for 3 years prior to opening, it was pretty close. It was just a matter of scaling it up on the big system. But yeah, it was from day one. That was sort of the star of the show at the brewery.
That's fire, man. And just to point out as well, the hops in this one are Zaka, Citra, and Simcoe. So it definitely has that kind of citrusy dankness from the Simcoe there, but also the tropical fruit brightness. Little touch of kind of like a pithy or piney sort of bitterness in there, but it's super light. You're right, Nate, with the body. The body is fantastic, and I guess Jake, it's that water chemistry as well. I imagine, is there oats in this for a bit of fluff?
I don't think there's.
No.
I haven't paid attention to the recipe sheet for Céleste in quite some time, but
that would be fair.
No, I don't think there is.
Then that's even more impressive, to be honest, to have this kind of body with no oats. It's just such a pleasure to drink. I feel like this is one of the ones that I've had from you the most, aside from the Crispies, and it's just always just such a. I feel like this is an underrated style. I mean, sort of maybe unlike Nate, I prefer my IPA. My money zone is a 6.5, like the mixtape level ones is perfection for me. But I have a real soft spot for these 5.5, I guess pale ales, like New England pale ales, that they're just when they're done well like this, oh man, it's just, I don't know, I just feel like it's just so beautiful, and it's like a nice, if you're having a run, I'm having a big night, you start with a crispy, and then you go into this, and I go to a 6.5, and you can go to a 7% Westie, and then an 8% something, just to kind of climb up the ABV ladder, and I feel like it just you could also, if you wanted to drink haze, but you don't want to go too high, excuse me, you could be able to sit on, have a bunch of these comfortably and, be in a good space. It's
well, that's even for bars and restaurants. This is one that does well on tap, just because for a bar and a restaurant, it's the difference between selling 1 pint or 2 pints and doubling up on sales. You know, so it's a good beer for that. It makes the whole haze thing more approachable. There's still a lot of people that see 6.5% beer and they think this is fucking nuts. I'm not touching that. So, but it's true. The vast majority of beer drinkers, still see the difference between Bud and Bud Light being 5 and 4.5%, and that's a big gap for a lot of people. So we try to be mindful of all beer drinkers, not just. We're not trying to just speak to one specific demographic, basically.
Gotcha. I like that. That's fair. With the can change as well, have you noticed a difference in consumer behavior as far as typically people would buy 4-packs of a Tall Boy 473s. For the short cans, are people buying in different ways? Are they buying more or just doing, are you noticing anything with regard to that, whether it's Céleste or any of the other products that you also package in short cans?
So we sell by the unit, so we don't sell in 4-packs.
Gotcha.
So it's really sort of a mix and match. I can't say that I've noticed sales slow down with Céleste. If anything, it might keep going up. And we are trying to make more room for it in our our production. So like, yeah, I can't say that I've seen it, but some of the packaging stuff also is for like we're available at different like a local spa where they'll need it in 473 because alcohol consumption is of concern. So that's why we have both of those formats. But in terms of its selling, I think the two formats specifically for Céleste just makes it more accessible. Like and there's probably not a podcast where I won't talk about Allagash or Allagash
Period.
But you look at Allagash White, and it's available in stubbies. It's available in, I think, stovepipes now. It's available in 473 and 355 cans. Like it's available. Is it available in maybe not 750s, but anyway, they have it available in a wide variety of format. Not being their flagship beer, I think it's cool that they're giving people option and what package to buy it in. So as long as it makes sense for us production wise, and we're not, it's not, there's not too much loss on the, canning or whatever. We're gonna probably look to offer it in both formats, and then for like we've got Lucide Dream coming up in 355s. That's just something where we try to offer a lot of higher ABV beers in 355s. And I say try because sometimes we just, we'll throw a Belgian triple in 473 and just like have fun, So at the moment, I would say there's no rhyme or reason for it, aside from Céleste making it more accessible and offering it in different sizes. But no, I can't say I've seen a difference in consumer habits as far as the format's concerned.
Interesting. That's such a good point you made about the Allagash White or like any sort of flagship beers, particularly in the States. It's not so much here, but like now you mentioned, you could think of like Voodoo Ranger or something from New Belgium, or like, I don't know, the Stone IPA or Sierra Nevada or something like that. That's like, even like, I swear I saw like Sip of Sunshine in the last trip in like different formats too. Like, I feel like that is a cool thing, and why not give people the option? Like, why not put it in 471 ml bottles like the Judas CL ones, or put it in these shorties, or put it in the long, or the stovepipes, which I get, are they illegal in Canada or something? Is that why we don't have it?
No, they're not. There are definitely some that get sold in that. Like, you remember the
Yeti?
The Mexican hot chocolate Yeti was in.
But that's an American beer.
Yeah, but it's still sold. It was still sold in the LCBO here.
That is true. I guess probably my question then was more around like, why aren't we seeing Canadian breweries do stovepipes? Like, is that
I have to imagine that it's probably it's probably just a production line thing. Like, it's probably not economical to source cans of that size for for whatnot. I mean, for a brewery the size of now I'm drawing a blank on on who makes Yeti. Oh, Great Divide.
Oh, Great Divide, yeah, Colorado.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's a different thing, but yeah,
I never thought about
that's
it.
Just a guess, of course. That's just a guess. I don't know what it's like to source stovepipe cans.
Yeah, no, that's Jake. Do you have any thoughts on that, like as to why we don't see them here?
No, I mean we see a lot of macro breweries do the King cans or whatever. They're almost like a crowler sized thing.
You're so right.
So we do see them, but
not in craft.
No, but
what about steam whistle?
We see crowlers.
Yeah,
but it's just I don't know. To me personally, it's just a very overly too big format to keep your beer sort of carbed and fresh and have a thing with
cold
temperature. Yeah, exactly. So
it could be American consumerism. I think you're 100%. Think about it, right? Like, you go to in Australia, it's different in Canada. Like, the large Coke at McDonald's is the American small. Like,
large.
So large Coke, if you go
American small, yeah.
So like, it's like this big or whatever is a large Coke in Australia. And then when you go to the States, you get a small. That's what that is, and the large is like
starting at that.
You're starting at that. So I think it could be this is all hypothesizing, but like it could be reflective of the American consumerism and just sort of that, like, you know, ridiculous size of things. You know, everything is just larger and bigger format. So perhaps consumers in Canada don't particularly, or haven't been warmed as a market to want something like that, because we get relatively normal portions and stuff here.
Yeah.
That I would consider similar to Australia. Nothing's too crazy here. Then you go to the States and everything changes. So maybe it's that.
Yeah.
And you know what? I feel that because the one beer in a stovepipe can that, like, for as soon as we talk about that, the first beer that I think of is always like bourbon barrel aged 1050. It's the first, it's literally
Isn't
the
that
first
crazy?
thing that I think of, and that's like a 12.5% beer in a fucking stovepipe can. Like,
How
that's
big-
too
That's
much.
crazy.
That's too much.
That's so insane. We were just talking about like putting, like, you know, Lucide Dream, which is 8.5% coffee stout in 355s and the shorties, and I'm like, Nate and I have had this conversation at length on here about the bigger beers being in smaller packages, because one of the reasons all of us have these insane cellars is we go and buy these 750s, and then you're like, yeah, sick, and you put it in there, and then you're never going to fucking drink it,
We
particularly
got
after...
Solo Dome in a 750 of Imperial
You are.
Stout.
Yeah.
I do. I've done well on a one night a week if that's the only beer I have. Like, for example, the Queen's Park or the Prairies. I got them. I did the last. I think it was the Queen's Park I had, or Prairies to the face. I took that one to the face. That was pretty good. But if that's all I do, then it's fine. It's just because you get like a little sick of a beer that intense after 750 mil. It's just a lot of the one thing. I don't think 750 mil of a Imperial Stout or barrel aged stout is in and of itself too much, because I do that every Wednesday. Like I would have last night, I had 2 beers and there were 2 smaller ones, and that's fine. I only went smaller because I'm a bit tired and whatever. Otherwise, I would have gone a little heavier. But I think it's just so interesting. I'm going to find out how big a stovepipe is as well, by the way. So go for it.
The one that still that still sticks out in my mind and is always the one that makes me a bit hesitant to crack open a 750 mil is back when Vox Populi was still doing like double hazel once every
Brown.
couple of years or whatnot.
Yeah,
They're big, like 10% Imperial Brown Ale, and I love that beer. But one time that 750 ml bottle just fucking wrecked me. I had one of the worst hangovers that I've had in the last decade when I had that to myself, and I didn't even drink that much else that night. I think I probably nursed that. I probably nursed that bottle over like 2 hours or something like that. But
2 hours for 750?
Yeah, man. Well, it's a strong beer. And it fucking wrecked me. My God.
I'm saying that's relatively fast.
I know.
Yeah, you went hard. So, I mean, that makes sense. Now, a stovepipe is 19.2 ounces. Correct me if I'm wrong. I always sort of get a little bit confused. You can get a pint that's 20 ounces, right?
Yeah.
There's a 16 ounce, which is the normal pint, which is essentially a 473. That's why it's a weird... Okay. Yeah. And then, so it's really just a... What would the 20 ounce be called? It's like an imperial pint or something like that? Like the big ass? Yeah, I know when you go to the States, you go to a brewery. What do you want? You want 12 ounce? You want 16? You want 20? I never would get a 20 of anything.
I'm better with the ounces now, because whenever someone says a pint, I never know what that means anymore. But
I guess it's a bit
just
vague.
some people, it mean just a beer. So
you're like, I don't know.
But,
yeah.
So I don't know. That's still too big of a format for me. I think 750 is a nice sharing format, I find. Not that we're not doing 750s, we're doing them. But like I said, I think they're a nice sharing sort of format.
Definitely.
No, they definitely are. I feel like over COVID...
I see a lot of people are moving away from, or a lot of breweries are moving away from 750 formats. And I think that's in response. This is a bigger, society problem, but do people do beer shares anymore? Like
after COVID?
Pre-COVID?
No, I don't think so. I think some super hyper beer nerds are, but I feel it's dropped. Do you guys see it?
We were talking about this with Matt and Noah when we did the Quebec top 10. That it's it's really fallen off. It's not as much of a thing as it was.
But like I don't even feel it's like a beer thing. I feel like it's a post-COVID world thing where people aren't
think you're
going
right.
out as often anymore. Like we're seeing restaurants close down. We're seeing, breweries are struggling and everything, and it sucks, man. And my worry is it's not even a financial thing at this point. It's more of a societal problem that, people were sort of trained to not leave their homes anymore and Uber this and Uber Eats that, whatever. So anyway, because I had a group of friends in Ottawa, and if they watch this, what's up, guys? But a group of friends in Ottawa that I miss doing this with. We'd get together, and I mean, and it's always like a bit of a like, what do you got? What are you bringing? What do you, it was super fun anyway. And I miss the sort of togetherness that because that's what brought me to beer in the first place, was sort of like the camaraderie, or what's the word?
Camaraderie.
Yeah, that's right, camaraderie.
And that's why our pub is so important to us. And I mentioned it's one of the, you travel for beer around the world, and like open fermentation. You see that stuff in Belgium, and you'll see growers, maltsters in the Czech Republic, and in the U.S. Those crazy hop farms on the West Coast. And one element that I found is lost in all that is the pub culture. It's I sort of discovered that in Ireland. And that's where, it's just the beer is an accessory to like conversation and people getting to know each other and being out. And that's why our pub is super important to us, because we try to get that. And it's a little disheartening in this post-COVID world to see people not going out and doing those kinds of things anymore. So that said, though, Craig, I saw you had a podcast and someone came over to the studio to record, which, because we were talking about that, I thought that was pretty neat.
That was with Troy. That actually just came out yesterday of the time we were recording this, and he was just like, yo, I'll come up. We are doing another one with him like in the next week or the week after, and he is about his brewery, but he was like, oh, he'll come by. And I was like, okay. No one's ever come to us before that's a brewery. And it was like, all right, cool. Why not? And it was like, I do miss doing that. Now the problem is we have too much equipment, and we are too busy because of our agency picked up, and to be able to go in the middle of the day. And it also was a little rough to be like, hey, Jacob, we'll come up at 2 p.m. and then you'll be in the middle of the podcast, and then someone will tap you on the shoulder and ask you a question, and it's because we're pulling away an active participant in the business, in the middle of the day. But the in-person stuff is definitely something that we're all kind of missing. Funnily enough, an interesting thing to get both of your thoughts on. I had my friend Chris from Banks Brewery in Melbourne, Australia, is one of my favorite breweries out there, and he said something that no one said before. He goes, think about it during COVID, right? Anyone, and let's talk about it in Quebec terms. Anyone who turned 18 in 2020, and 18 in 2021, 2022, they were completely robbed of the experience of going out for their first legal drink. Think about us. When in Australia it's 18. I know here in Ontario it's 19. But the most exciting shit, I didn't do fake IDs or anything. I did it. Obviously, I was drinking before 18 because I'm a rebel, but I didn't go out before then. And going out to those pubs and clubs was so like it formed who you were. It was it's
a formative experience for sure.
It was so important. So think about now, right? We're already talking about Gen Z not drinking. There was at least those 3 years. Last year, not so much, but 2021 and 22, all the kids who turned 18 in that time didn't get that experience, or if they did,
never thought of that.
They had neither did I, and I was like, because he's in Australia, this guy's telling me this, and I was like, because there's a big pub culture in Australia, and I mentioned it, Jacob, because I know you're sitting in front of the harp thing, and I know you're a big British beer guy and Belgian, all that stuff, and the pub culture is very a big part of it, and that to me was like, oh fuck, like that's what trains you to go out and to associate good times with friends over drinks at these pubs, which is big in the UK and blah blah blah. So like. Now there's all these kids across the world who turned of age in their respective countries in the last fucking 3 years, who didn't get to experience that. And then as they get older, they're not going to even think, let's go to a pub and have a drink and meet a friend. They're going to be like, hey, let's do something else. So that's like taking away that business directly from all of the establishments, bars, restaurants, breweries, the whole thing. So, and if you guys have got any thoughts on that, but I was blown away. I was like, that's fucking insane.
But even beyond like help or people going out contributing to local small businesses, it's like, what's that lack of interaction gonna potentially look like? Or anyway, that's kind of a more a broader sort of concern that I have, not directly about our business at all, but more of a consumer trends or so anyway, it's just
even just kind of social trends like in society that we're probably we might not, we likely won't even see the full effects of that for another 5-10 years, to kind of see how that develops
and how if people can kick back into it. Because because they were never exposed to it,
or if it changes or if it changes what their habits would develop into entirely.
Exactly. What I'm worried about is having a gap of 10, 15, 20 years where people are like, well, fuck this going out shit. COVID, I was well at home and I could just order everything in. I don't have to go out anymore. And it's, if that's the case, then it's going to take the next generation coming in and being like, fuck that, we don't want to be like them, we're going out, and then things are going to pick up again. Because we all thought it was going to be the roaring 20s, once we made it past COVID. And it turns out it's not. So you're wondering, sure, there is the economy.
I was going to say,
then is there, so of course. But is there some habits, sort of creeping in there that are going to be hard to turn around? So anyway, those are, broader questions, but all that to say that's why our pub is so important to us, because it keeps that pub culture alive and sort of discussing with our consumers. And, So
that's what made me think of it.
Don't see that.
Yeah, man. And the word pub, I really feel like it's just such an important, like a thing that maybe isn't as prevalent in Canada as it is in, say, the UK or even Australia, which is more influenced by UK culture. One positive thing, last night was Valentine's Day. We don't really celebrate it, but we had some work to do. And Tiff was like, let's get to this is new, well, not new, but new to us, ramen place. And we went to order on Uber Eats just to get it in, which we would normally do. And they weren't ordering, so I called and they were able to do it to pick up. So I was like, all right, let me go pick up. And I pulled up, and that whole street's called King William here in Hamilton. That's like all the kind of bunch of cool restaurants and stuff. Like everything was rammed. There were couples everywhere. There were people there. They were like, hey, you got a reservation? No, just here for pickup. Like it was really encouraging. I was like, oh man, this is fucking great. This is a vibe, because we don't go out too much because we got the dog as well, so we don't go out as often, but we order in a lot to support the restaurants. But anyway, that was encouraging to me. I'm like, it's Valentine's Day, and these restaurants, I had to like call, like they weren't on Uber Eats, so I called, and then they were like, oh, we're not doing takeout. We're like, fuck, okay, cool. And then like 2 minutes later they called back. It must have been the guy probably told the boss, and the boss was like, fucking call that guy back and get that takeout order. In this economy, you're not saying no, type of thing. And they held me down, so I appreciated that, and I was like, yeah, because I wanted to support. I like the business and stuff, so I thought that was pretty cool that the restaurant had reservations. They were very full and very busy. It was bustling, and I hadn't personally seen that in this time recently. So I was like, this is great. This is very cool. Yeah, made me happy.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Because I think the last time we went out to dinner, which is fucked up, was probably with you guys in Montreal. That's how little we do it.
Really?
I don't know if I've been out for dinner since that I can think of, because that was in August. Yeah, we just order in on the weekends and stuff. Maybe one time, but I can't think of anything. I just feel like that's when it was. So it was nice to see. So maybe things, I don't know, 2024, we always said like last year after everything kind of got back to normal and people were starting to get used to it, it was a pretty slow summer. And when I saw you guys came to Montreal in August and we did all of New England and all of that, everything was surprisingly quiet. Like nothing had lineup. I went to a bunch of breweries that absolutely should have been a whole ordeal for me, and I just walked in the door like no problem. So I don't know. hopefully 2024 economy pending, it's going to be looking up for that. But
Absolutely.
yeah, I love it.
On that note, it's probably about time for next beer, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, can I take a bathroom break?
Yeah, do you want to all take a bathroom break? We have a pause button that I didn't know we had,
sure.
so we can do that. All right, guys, we'll be back in a
VRB.
second. Oh, we are back. The bladders could not be emptier, and the glasses are about to be filled with some West Coast IPA. Uncle Jacob, tell us about this bad boy. Yes.
So we're drinking Route 66. It's in our American IPA series. 7%. This one is brewed with 45% Citra, 30% Nelson Sauvin, 14% Chinook, and 11% Enigma.
It's one of the first things I want to shout out is that you even put that on the can. It's so sick, dude.
I love that so
Oh
much.
yeah, that's
Where did that come from?
Well, just from my brain, I guess. But we were getting people, just mentioning how much, you don't mention what hops you put on your cans, and to us it was like, well, we also don't mention what yeast, the water profile, and the malts we use, which are all the ingredients for a beer, but people are super curious about hops. So I was trying to find a way to sort of integrate it and make it interesting. And so we were able to do it with the percentage sort of bar graphic. I'll try to hold it up to the camera. I don't know if people will see this, but
Let's see what way that is. I can't
little
see it
bar
right here.
graph.
There you go. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Which is good, and basically every can, Céleste has it. Like the Crispies don't have it because I guess it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But for the IPAs, do I just think it's really cool. Like personally, I go to Untapped to figure it out, and if it's not on Untapped, I just go to the Instagram. But this is a real world example of how the fuck to do it. It's perfect.
Yeah, no, we thought, we're super happy with, it's a fun way to integrate it while still keeping our can design relatively clean.
Yeah.
So yeah, now I'm completely stuffed up, so I'm going into this one based on memory.
That's completely fair. And I'm sorry that you don't, I'm sure you, like you said, you had the case of this. This is the one you said you had the case of, right?
No, it's going to California. That I have a case of, but this one, even though I can't really smell or taste it right now,
tons of orange.
This one was super reminiscent of like Alchemist to me when it first came out. Like it was very dank, very.
Cheers, boys.
Yeah, just it's the best way I could sort of describe it.
The Alchemist, banger. What? Oh fuck, dude. Yes, sir. I had a heady last weekend, like 4 days ago, and it was an older heady, like 5.5 months old. Yeah. But it held up, and this is very much in that vibe.
Yeah, for sure.
What about this is related to that? Like, talk through that just to explain.
I wouldn't know. I don't know how John Kimmick and the team at Alchemist do it over there, so I wouldn't be able to compare the recipes. But in terms of the flavor profile, and again, this is based on memory because I can't taste the fucking thing right now. Yeah, it was just super dank. Super dank with a decent dose of bitterness to it. But also a lot of fruitiness. So that's when I was talking about those American IPAs and that series, what we were trying to do and sort of revisit some styles that were kind of bookended between traditional West Coast IPAs and New England haze. Yeah, look at that.
It's
gorgeous.
Oh.
Yeah. So it really illustrates that, what we're trying to do with that. And, so it coming out being, to me at least, very reminiscent of like, an Alchemist beer. And speaking of, I was just at Alchemist a few weeks ago, and they had their 20th anniversary heady topper.
Did you try it?
Yeah. I have
How is it?
cans here. It's really good. Really good. It's It doesn't drink like 10% at all.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's
So crazy they did
it's
10%.
dangerous. Yeah, they made it 10%, just really good beer. But I mean, even while I was there, I was having their Skadoosh series, and it's fire. And then they had a pale ale I had when I was there this summer that was like one of the better hoppy beers I've had in a while. And so yeah, so this one is just, to me, was very reminiscent of that, and that's what we're trying to do with those American IPAs, is kind of revisit the whole history of American IPA.
That's
Can
sick,
you
man.
speak?
This is
Can you
beautiful.
speak to what, like in terms of like the series? Because I know there's like you guys obviously distinguish between them, but if you're looking kind of at like the West Coast bill of your coniferous series or the American IPA series, like, can you talk us through what distinguishes those two at Cinquième?
Yeah,
Great question.
yeah, it's a really good question. So aside from like their names, is I'd say the maltiness is dialed down on the West Coast IPAs, and the hops are more the star of the show. Where and we tend to go a bit more bitter with our West Coast IPAs. With our American IPAs, the SRM is higher, so the color is a bit more orange, orangier. We tried to really give it sort of that candied citrus, candied
That's what it
fruit
is.
kind of stewed fruit kind of notes.
Yeah.
And then different ones like Route 66 has a healthier dose of bitterness. Going to California is a bit more muted in the bitterness department, but there's a bit more of a maltiness to our American IPAs than there is to our West Coast IPAs. Our West Coast IPAs, if you want to get smacked in the face by hops, go West Coast IPA. If you want something a bit more fruity, but you still want a decent amount of bitterness in your IPA, that's kind of that gap that we've created with our American IPAs. That's kind of in between both worlds. That we didn't really know how to identify them. I know I've sent them to some people. Some have called them Midwest IPAs. For us, the inspiration was always like early kind of Vermont stuff that was a bit more bitter and used a bit more New World hops and not just classic C hops. And so we sort of wanted to add that to our portfolio, because those are really the IPAs that we like drinking at the brewery. So it was important for us to keep. We worked at those for quite some time, like for the past 7 years. And then, which one was the first one to come out? I think it might have been Laurel Canyon, but we had named it. Yeah, so Laurel Canyon. We even today, I had someone write me like, "Hey, is this normal? I have an old Laurel Canyon, it says West Coast IPA, and then I have this new one, says American IPA." And we were kind of debating, are we going to alienate too many people if we call them West Coast IPAs, but really we're going to showcase more like New World hops in them. So we're really careful of how we present our beers. And even though we realize we might alienate some people with the naming, and maybe we have created a bit of a buzz around our West Coast IPAs, so that was kind of going against that. But it was just important for us to make that distinction, and for people to know what they're actually buying when they're buying it. So creating a separate sort of line for the American IPAs was the most logical choice for us.
That's cool,
and it was like the right one to really give the beer its proper name as well.
Yeah.
You know what? When you explain it like that, that's money. That makes complete sense. I don't think that's illogical or alienating at all, because as you were describing it, and we happen to be drinking the American IPA, I'm like, yeah, and I've had Laurel Canyon. I might have had going to California before. I think I might have. and some of the other ones in that series, they are quite different. The West Coast are basically like crystal clear for the most part. Like I think I had Double Douglas relatively recently. Nate got me that one, which was just spectacular. And obviously Winter Walks, which we're going to be having soon. They are markedly different. Now that you've pointed that out, I'm like, yeah, I can totally. And I happen to just have had some Alchemist, like early Vermont style stuff, and this is giving that very, very much so, which is quite different. And the stuff, it's even cooler now because this is something that I don't know. Nate, were you aware of all of this before this?
Aware of all of which?
Like everything, Jacob. The difference between American and West Coast. The question you just asked, are you?
Well, I hadn't heard Jacob describe it exactly that way, but the reason that I wanted to ask this was because as we were talking through what Winter Walks was going to be, we were kind of talking through, like, do we want it to be more of the of the American IPA malt bill versus the West Coast IPA IPA malt bill for that one. I decided it would be good to lean more towards the coniferous style for the West Coast. So I thought it would be good to kind of dig into really what the differences were.
Amazing. I think it's so fucking cool because, like, you know, I would argue that Nate and I are the biggest cheerleaders of your Westies specifically, or just all things that taste
I know
like.
you guys love them. Thank you.
It's like,
appreciate that.
Hey man, you guys are the goats of it. Like, no one's touching you. Nobody. Anywhere with this many. It's just insane. Like, I'll tell anybody at any time and they go and try it and they'll be like, yeah, you're right, because we're fucking right. It's just insane. And
yeah, I was looking at, I mentioned this before. I was looking at, because I love these end of year summaries that you guys post, with,
dude,
all of the new brands and the percentages of what styles that are done each time. Because I had counted this up, and it was in 2023, 15% of your lineup being West Coast and American style IPAs and pale ales. And counting through it, I think there were like 8 or 9 new brands under that category in 2023.
Yeah. So in 2023 is where, like, last year is when we really launched our American IPAs, which again, I think was a culminating point for us because the West Coast IPAs are, there are West Coast IPAs. We love them. We appreciate them. They're great beers. Personally, that's where I wanted to sort of go. That's kind of my preferred IPA profile. Our American IPAs is what I want to drink. And I think a lot of people at the brewery also sort of feel the same way. That's been, is Laurel Canyon, Sunset Boulevard, Gona, California, Chateau Marmont, Route 66. They're kind of the flavor. And, I ask a bunch of people at the brewery all the time, like, what's your, every week we have like 4 or 5 or 6 beers releasing. And I always ask everybody, like, what's your, beer of the release? And the American IPAs have been really popular with our staff. They've been popular with us. I think, like, I've been really pushing for those sort of candied citrus, aromatic but like still marmalade, bitter kind of. Yeah, exactly. Where you get that sort of you get the bittering qualities of the hops in the boil, but you also get the aromatic qualities from a bit of a dry hop. So, and you introduce them later on in the boil as well. So you get more aromatics, less bitterness. So it's a nice niche. Like, I think a lot of people either see like it's got to be New England or it's got to be West Coast. And it's like, well, when people really got into New England's weren't even New England's yet, So, yeah. And it seemed like we spent like a year or 2 there, and then we just all like fucking moved on to Treehouse and everything. Which nothing. I mean, I love Treehouse. I think it's a great brewery, but I think we didn't focus a lot on that sort of in between period
on the nuances. Yeah.
On the nuances, and that's what we're trying to shine a light on with that series, and it's been it's definitely been my, like, I haven't been drinking a lot of IPAs, or at least not as much since we've come out with the American IPAs. Like now it's a steady staple in my fridge, and yeah. But that's
totally
me
get it.
personally, you know. That's why we've got the West Coast, we've got the New Englands, and we've got these. So we've got, you know, a wide variety of hop drinkers covered. Or, you know,
Hell yeah,
something.
bro.
Absolutely.
It's even cooler that now that you've broken that down, because I didn't realize there was a differentiation at all. This was all news to me. This is even cooler, because I would have put them all under like the West Coast sort of, you know, banner as far as Sankiam's concerned. And I just think this is so sick, and I feel like it's like it's like a welcome and wonderful resurgence of a style that probably got fronted on and or buried because of the popularity of haze. And the way you've just explained that, now that full breadth, because you guys don't know, you know, you've got just as many versions of American IPAs as you do New England's, and even more West Coast. So like there's so many. Like you got the mixtape series, which is kind of like, I think the same base with different hops. Then you had, what was that pink one that was the best New England IPA you've ever done, in my opinion? And Chris said the same thing too. It was called it started with P, I think.
Sorry, I don't know.
It was, I'll find it, but it was like, it was so spectacular, and I'm just like, oh man, like
Was it New England IPA or
in New
Pale Ale,
England?
or?
It was haze. It was no, was it?
Oh, what the fuck was that called?
No, it wasn't it was
I don't even remember.
Paradiso.
No, wait, yeah.
One.
No, what you're the one that you just named was the collab with M.
Okay. Okay, whichever it was just a point being that there's like a bunch of one-offs, plus there's the all the different type of haze, and it's so cool to see that variety of availabilities in styles, particularly, you know, the haze availability I think is great, because I think people would say, oh, all New England's taste the same. I'm like, no, they don't. There is so much variety in New England IPAs, and I will die on that hill. And then it's even more so, I would argue, between the American and the West Coast, and it's so cool that we're having this one, and this very much is that kind of, when I was hang out with just before we came to see you, with Sean Hill, and he was telling me that he basically invented the New England IPA and doesn't always get the props for it, because he was working at the Alchemist and they had done Heady and all of that, and then he did the first one that was really of that style, and that kind of gave birth to a bunch of other things, including Treehouse, who apparently Nathan from Treehouse used to come to all his events and stuff like that, and kind of go from there. So you could kind of trace the lineage sort of back a Vermont IPA to then maybe the Hill Farmstead, like Complete Haze, which was an accident, he said, and then people liked it, and then, you know, Sip of Sunshine and all those other different ones out there in Vermont, and then that led to the New England, you know, Trillium Treehouse and so on and so forth. It's just really cool to see that, and how different they all are, and how different hops are, and how different the water profiles, and just the whole thing behind it all, where maybe people think it's a one-dimensional style, but it's truly far from it.
No, it's not at all. I mean, just the amount of time it took us to dial in the our American IPA taste profile is a testament to how far and wide the style can go. That, you know, it's any style. These styles are out there. This history is out there. And it feels sometimes now in the climate in which we're operating that maybe a lot of beer consumers and a lot of brewery owners and operators sort of came in through that haze sort of bubble wave, because the way they're creating beers seems very, and I'm not knocking it whatsoever. Like, I think that's, we talk about Treehouse, like fucking Treehouse is a bank at this point, you know, like they got golf clubs, they're making eggs, coffee, you know, whatever, you name it, they got it.
Eggs.
Weren't they making eggs at one point? People were
I haven't seen that, but I would not be surprised.
Barrel-aged whatever, ISO, like Treehouse eggs. That was like that thing that was happening online. Anyway.
I must have missed that.
But no, it's like I find like a lot of the market right now is very much from that, and it's super normal, right? Like that whole movement kind of turned a lot of eyes. We've said it when we were talking about Céleste, brought a lot of eyes to like craft beer. My senators are getting killed.
Sorry about that.
What was
Goda
I
leaves,
saying?
eh? Goda leaves. Sorry.
Yeah, it turned a lot of eyes to our segment, but you know the world in which we came up in, as far as Cinquième Baron, was like, you know, listening to old Michael Jackson interviews, and not like Michael Jackson the singer, you know, like Michael Jackson the beer journalist, and early stuff, and learning about Flemish red and Belgian styles, and recently or last year got to talk with Sylvain, which is a spokesperson for Unibrew, and I mean, you talk to those guys, and they have crazy stories about like what it used to be, and all smaller. Bim from Godspeed's another one, man. You talk to him, and it was like the world was like, the brewing world was so small back then, and so you know, I'm afraid there might be a lot of that's being lost in North American beer history, and I think with the American IPAs, and it was very important to us because, you know, we're talking about the distinction between our West Coast and our American IPAs, but those were like some pretty serious, but like serious questions we were asking ourselves at the brewery, in terms of like, we can't really call them West Coast IPAs because that's not what they are. And then the question then becomes like I said, are we going to alienate our consumers? And if so, do we care? Not in terms that we don't care about our consumers, but, you know, we would rather give the beer its proper name and introduction and its intention and everything. So it was important to us to make the switch. So anyway, all that to say that you've got Laurel Canyon with a West Coast IPA label, and you've got one now with the American IPA, but we're really, and you can distinct them, like our West Coast IPAs are always going to be that coniferous, you know, spruce, cypress,
Witchwood.
We've got a bunch of them, and then the American IPAs are sort of those West Coast landmarks with, you know, Chateau Marmont, Laurel Canyon, Route 66. And if you don't know about any of these things, Google them. There's some interesting stories about all of them.
Hell yeah.
Well, dude, I fucking love that you guys take it that seriously to to distinguish between this, and I think that you kind of answered your own question when you're asking do we care, and like, you obviously do care very much about how, about what this means to your consumers. If it even occurs to you to ask if we might be if you might be alienating consumers by making this distinction, you guys evidently do care quite a lot. But I think that the attention to detail that you guys have is quite unique. I don't know that there's a lot of breweries that would bother to go to that level of care and distinction to kind of really to distinguish between two similar but distinct styles.
But I agree, but I mean, we kind of determined who we wanted to be as a brewery early on, even before we opened. Like, we opened with Two Tails Pills and Mixtape Red, and this was like a preface of what we were about to do. Like, this is going to go.
You were laying the groundwork.
All the directions. So no, it's very important to us to, I mean, even our recent collaboration with Dominion City, it's called Redwood. It's a red IPA. We had that conversation, and we kind of looped them into our madness. Like, do we call this a hoppy red ale, which it really is? But then we were translating that in French, and we were like, okay, this is just too much of a word salad for it to even sell. So we decided to go with red IPA, but I mean, the question was, hoppy red ale or red IPA, and we do spend a lot of time on those things, and it might sound ridiculous to a lot of consumers, it might sound ridiculous to a lot of breweries, but we want to be a reliable brewery, and people look to us for that type of, I don't want to say leadership, but that type of guidance, so we do take it seriously, and then we take the time to present these beers well, because we take a lot of time to develop those recipes. So it's only right that we bring them to the market in the right way, and educate the consumers as best as we can, because that's all we can do. Make you discover styles, understand them, and then you can go out in the world and keep consuming Cinquième Baron, or ask for different things. And then, if you order it, they don't do it as good as us, then you'll come see us again. Hopefully.
No, guaranteed. It's a guarantee. I think it's cool because, think about it. If you're talking to a consumer like Nate and I, on yourself, this is dope, because then now, tonight, I learned something about the way that you're differentiating it, and it makes complete sense to do so. And if I'm a consumer who doesn't care, you're just going to be drinking a good beer. That's
exactly
the only thing. There's no downside to it. On the upside, it's cool. Then you get to learn something. You know what I mean? Well, it's beautiful.
Like if we get people walking into the pub, right? And it's well, what do you like I like IPAs. Okay, well, imagine the question it opens up for us. And we're okay, well, do you like bitter IPAs? Do you like juicy IPAs? Or do you like something in between? Because we got whatever you like, we've got you.
That's a good episode name right there.
And for us, the answer in terms of the best hoppy beers is right in the middle with those American IPAs for us. But for us at the brewery, but our consumers, I mean, you were talking about our graphic earlier, 30 something, I can't remember, percent is still,
I think it's 15.
No, in terms of New England IPAs, that's still the biggest chunk of our portfolio, which kind of shows you where the market is. But we're I wouldn't say we're trying to put a dent in that, but we want to brew what we enjoy, which we do enjoy hazy IPAs, but these new American ones are really kind of, they really have our attention, and we really enjoy drinking them and sharing our passion for these beers. We're really excited about this line that sort of came about in 2023. So it's something we're going to look to lean into a bit more, and well, not a bit more, but we're just going to keep doing it the way we're doing it for the upcoming years.
I love it. And this is like a kind of pre-segue, because we're going to talk about a bunch of things. He's the easiest to get canned here. So this was a super proud moment. So for your anniversary in 2023, we finally did a collab. The Australia, the Extra Pale Ale XPA, Australian XPA. To me, and this is kind of what I wanted to touch on here. First of all, this was spectacular because this is a sort of like a weird, like non-style that just Australians do. And I was like, if we're going to do something, let's do something a bit kind of fun for the Quebec market and have something super Australian. And you got this beautiful picture of Sydney Harbour, which is not my city, and now Melbourne is the biggest city in Australia, but whatever, Sydney tried to fuck with us, but we are the biggest, so it's okay. But this is it's such a beautiful beer, man, and I gave a few, like, it was really hard because obviously I'm not there, so I couldn't be like, hey, try a bunch of these, so we had to kind of wing it. And to me, this was such a dope beer because we used all Aussie hops. We used, fortunately, it's on the can, Vic Secret Galaxy and Eclipse, three really great hops for this. And we kind of like went, this to me was more in that maybe slightly in the coniferous kind of series of Westies, because this was probably maybe predating or around the time when some of the first of the American IPAs were coming out. So I don't know if you want to speak on this at all, Jake. Like, this was just such a cool, fun beer.
Yeah. We had very little exposure to XPA, to be honest, and that's always
Doesn't
like
exist.
a challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always a challenge. Like, you know, someone will hit us up with like, "Hey, you want to do a collab and let's brew like a fucking blah blah blah," and we're like, you know, okay, it's cool. Like, it's a different thing that nobody's, you know, it's a beer name that nobody's put on a can before.
But what does it mean? What is
But
it?
but the thing with us is like, and for this one, it was kind of you know, we're kind of trying it out and going with your guidance, and the hops are sort of a big driver for that as well. But if it's a style we usually don't know much of or don't have you know, like a baggage, like we haven't tasted a lot of it, we'll stay clear, because then we can't give a good
Like,
a
take on
good
it.
representation of the style. But no, for that one, it was just like, you know, the way we understood it, and we were going based off of, you know, you and us sort of talking, and it was just a matter of throwing some Aussie hops in there. And that one was like 5.8%, if I remember correctly, or something like that.
It was 6 exactly. So yeah,
6
basically.
exactly. Okay,
Yep,
there you
yep,
go.
yep.
So that was like the ABV we were shooting for.
SRM we were shooting for. It was the one that I referenced was this brand called Bolter, who was owned by this surfer who then sold the brewery to a macro company, a bigger company. But the Bolter XPA was like the benchmark one. They have this thing called GABS, Great Australian Beer Spectacular, and they have they do like events every year, like festivals, but they have like there's so much culture stuff, but there's this thing called the Hottest 100 in Triple J, which is a radio station. So people vote for the most popular songs. So they do the same thing with beer through this beer thing.
Really? On the radio station?
So there's this one radio. You know what? You're a rap dude, so you'll appreciate this. I'll tell you the brief story. There's this one radio station called Triple J, and as a up-and-coming artist, the only thing that mattered was to get on this radio station. But the problem was there's one fucking guy who ran it, and who got... If you get on there, you have to fucking kiss the shoes of this guy type of thing.
He made or break you.
Basically, he did, and this is what was the big problem with Australian rap, at least 15... You know, we came up 20 years ago, like, you know, 22, it was 2002 when I started putting out music. I am old as dick. So... that was kind of, but then that continued on, right? So then the Gabs, so that was for the music thing, and then the Gabs did the same thing with beer. So the Bolter XPA, which I've had a few times, it's fantastic. That was kind of like the benchmark for this XPA. And I was like, okay, that's when I sent that one to you guys to be like, hey, this is the one that I'd had before that maybe it's kind of cool. We could aim for that. I think that was 5% and a bit lighter in the SRM that we ended up doing. And we sort of ramped it up. We ramped it up to 6%. And we, you know, I kind of think it's a bit of a wank, the XPA thing. It's just like a pale ale. Do whatever you want. Like, I don't think there's a rule to it. Like maybe
like Italian Pilsner.
Yeah.
No, to be fair, I could taste an Italian Pilsner probably blind and be like, that's an Italian Pilsner. So there's something in it.
Sure, but I think Jacob's point is that what's Italian about an Italian Pilsner?
Oh, yeah, nothing.
It's just a dry hopped Pils.
Yeah, good point. Great fucking point. Same shit. It's a wank. And I was just like, let's think about marketing. If you're collabing with BAOS, you might as well do an Australian beer. It makes it kind of fun. And it happened out here. Town did one. Great Lakes did one. But no one had done it in Quebec, as far as I'm aware. I know Four Origins just did one in January, like last month, which is great. And that was it. So I was like, oh, this would be fun. It'd be unique. It'd be something kind of cool. So there was no rules. It'd be like, hey, let's use some Aussie hops. Let's play with it. Hey, Dimitri was suggesting it. So I was really happy how it came out. And I was like, I felt like this was, once again, I only learned about the American versus West Coast this evening. But I feel like at the time it was probably more in that coniferous thing, because it was kind of like, it was super smooth, really easy to drink. Obviously a little bit piney and bitter and dank and everything. But where would you have placed that beer? For anyone?
Fuck, that's a good question.
Because I might be off. And it could, maybe it's somewhere in the middle even.
Yeah, I think it reminded me more of like our early IPLs. kind of vibes, but which would be
That's
in
cool.
that sort of coniferous series. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not too far off.
No, not at all. So that's pretty much where I'd have it.
Where you have it
as
there?
well. Yeah.
Okay, sick.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It was just such a great beer, man. It was really fun. I wish I had a bit. Oh, man, I think it was because it was when we did it was like it was too hard to get down. Oh no, I think when we did it we were in Miami. That was why we were in Florida for.
You were there forever.
Yeah, we were there for like 4 weeks, and I was hoping to go back this year. Not happening, unfortunately. But it was just so cool to actually do that with you guys finally after all this, and obviously running Link Up together for all these years, and like.
Well, yeah, it's fun. It's fun collaborating with beer bloggers on beer. I always, I say it all the time when I'm talking with you, but the work that beer bloggers put in is so important, and I'm always afraid it'll get lost. We were talking before we jumped on the pod of like mainstream media grabbing a hold of microbrewery and how popular it got, and they're reporting on it, which is a great thing, but not always super accurate. But then just to have people doing it for the love of the game. And which is the world I come from, right? I was just like a graphic designer, beer enthusiast that now finds himself on the other side of things. But, for the longest time, what you guys brought to it was more, well, it still is, but more important than what I could do as far as a brewery. And it, everyone that shows an appreciation and dedicates time to what it is we're doing, because I do believe we're a bunch of collective small businesses that hire a lot of people to produce very little beer. So we're sort of a good way of, hiring local people and everything. And I feel that the people who cover it often get overlooked. And that's just super wrong to me. Like, I think everyone needs their media and I was just, passionate dude about beer who got into it. And so whenever the opportunity presents itself to sort of collaborate on something and work together, I know for me working with you guys, it feels very probably similar as it does as far as your experience, because I'm very limited in terms of what I can bring to a recipe. It's funny, Dimitri and I are like the left and right brain. Like, he knows how to achieve the results, and I'm like, do this. And, like it's sort of like we've developed like a real codependency that's in like the most beautiful possible way. But it's very technical with Dimitri, and we've developed our language where I get his sort of, nerdy lingo, and he gets my sort of artsy culinary. I want to bring it this way, or I want to take it to this place. And then when we jam on beers together, with whether it's you guys, Noah, Emily, whoever we get to work with, there's a passion there that's just similar to mine, and a baggage of beers that you've had where you kind of know where you want to take it, but you can't take it there. You need a Dimitri. So it's cool. I got access to Dimitri, so I'm like, let's just bring Dimitri in and we can chat about beer, and we'll tell him what we want, and then we'll do a pilot batch, and then we'll taste it and see how it is, and then we'll tweak it. And so it's always fun working with like-minded people who are doing this and got into this purely for the love of the product and the culture and everything that's around it.
Yeah, that's a great way to sort of describe it, because it's super organic. And I know we're gonna segue into Nate's collab, but it was like a pleasure, and it was really cool to watch. Say, like you mentioned, Noah, who's obviously a good friend of all three of us and of the show, friend of the show. Love saying that. And he did the hopism and the stoutism. Both were phenomenal beers, and it was super cool to see what you guys did. And I know I like it that like you, Jacob, have a real appreciation for this stuff. I don't feel like we're like undervalued. BAOS is coming up on 9 years in April, and it's like there's not many other podcasts in the entire country. I think there's like one or two that are probably older than us, and that have been. I don't know if anyone has been as consistent. So I feel like we're as respected or whatever it is as we need to be. I feel like people always are super kind and generous with us, and always down to talk and see the value in something like this. And you know, like, that's great. That's fucking amazing. Like, you don't have to do anything at all, but it's really cool to see anybody appreciate it, particularly people that we appreciate what they're doing.
You guys also don't have to do anything and cover our industry, so it's a give. I think it's just, that's why I personally got into it, was the sort of bonding there was around beer, and how kind people were, and how much they wanted to share their passion. So whenever, and we're big on like our local market, so whenever we can do something and give back and help someone sort of live an experience or whatever, it's something that's very important to us, and it builds the community and it builds the industry, and it's just, you mentioned hip hop before, and like hip hop was huge on collaboration. You pick up an album and you're like, holy fuck, Rake One's doing a shit with Capadonna or whatever, and with beer, I find like there was a lot of that, like, let's just get together and jam on a beer. Now, they all don't become, super big, really elaborate collaborations. And sometimes you just collaborate on different things. It can be a concept, it can be the recipe, it can be, whatever. But it's a fun element there is to it. And I find with people that do stuff for the love of it and haven't gotten lost in like the industry of it all, there is still that passion, I think, that really lights a fire under our asses at St. Battle. So that's always fun.
That's dope, man. There is a lot of parallels. Now you say it with rap. I was like, as you said that, I was like, yeah, I guess it kind of is. Like,
the elements, man. The elements. The pub culture is like the b-boying of the whole shit.
Break it all down. Break out the 4 elements.
No, I don't have all the 4 elements.
Okay.
I should. But,
that's a good post. That's a good social media post.
Yeah, but there's just these different elements to beer, I find, and there's, or to our, smaller beer culture, there's the people covering it, there's the consumers, there's the producers, there's the pub. Like I said, the pub is like the biggest thing.
I guess the auxiliary businesses, the canning, the restaurants who support it, the yeast suppliers, the hop suppliers, the malt, the adjuncts. Like,
everyone plays a part.
It's a nice little sort of farming industry kind of thing that we've got going. And, we try to focus on local. We try to shine a light on our local businesses. And it goes against, everything that's sort of getting bigger and focusing less on small businesses. And I hope we don't lose that. We've noticed the market slowing down and everything, but I hope we don't lose that, and that small breweries continue thriving. Understand people have to make hard choices right now with their hard-earned dollars. But there's some fucking kick-ass breweries out there that are really worth the money. And if you're cutting down on beer, you're cutting down on expensive beer, there's still some breweries that are truly worth it.
Absolutely.
Great point. Well said. And with that, and all of this talk about the collab, shall we talk about and crack up a winter walks?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
So, gentlemen, I'll leave this to you guys to talk about, because this was Nathan's inaugural solo collaboration. Nathan had been a part of a couple of BAOS collabs and participating in the final outcome, but this was his first at bat.
You'd never done a collaboration, right?
Never done a collaboration under the name NathanDoesBeer. Like Craig said, I've been involved in a lot of chats with some BAOS collabs, but this was my very first NathanDoesBeer only collab.
It made me feel like a proud older brother.
So it was particularly exciting for me, and it was like my first solo collab with with one of my absolute favorite breweries with some of my absolute favorite people in the scene. So it really truly meant a lot to me.
It made so much sense
man.
when Nate didn't even like spill the beans. I was actually kind of mad because when he told me it was happening, he's like, "Yeah, it's been in the talks since February," and he told me like 2 weeks out. Oh, there goes my camera. And I was like, "You motherfucker! You didn't even tell me shit." Well done.
We had been talking about that beer for a while.
It's true.
I guess a year ago we started talking about that beer. So it's always, timing and fitting the beer style you want into the production calendar and everything. So always a challenge. Yeah, I'm still stuffed up, but
you know what? It was worth the wait for this.
it was. I mean, it really came out amazing.
It sure did.
It's a spectacular product.
Yeah.
And it was cool. Do you guys want to explain maybe I was about to spill the beans, but I think you guys should talk about it. Do you want to explain, first and foremost, cheers, guys, get this one in you. I'm excited for this.
Yeah, let's take a
And
sip.
then, that nose. Oh, fuck off. It's so different to the last one as well.
Yeah.
What a gorgeous product. Do you guys want to talk about like the evolution of this? Because the final product was absolutely not what you intended, which I think is even cool. I think it's even better when things turn out like, oh yeah, we wanted to do this, but now we ended up doing this, and this is way better.
It's true. Yeah. So the initial idea that I had pitched to Jacob and Dimitri was a West Coast IPA, specifically a classic C-hop West Coast IPA. I was initially thinking like a single West Coast, like a 6.57% kind of deal. Talking specifically C hops, which is exactly what we ended up with. We ended up with was 55% Centennial, 30% Cascade, 15% Chinook. Wanted to lean really heavy on the Centennial with thinking of some classic American / West Coast IPAs. Like if you're thinking like Bell's Two Hearted, which is 100% Centennial. So really wanted Centennial to be the focus. But anyways, yes, like we were saying, was initially thinking a single West Coast, but then when we got around to talking about the name and and kind of the branding of it and whatnot, the name I came up with was Winter Walks.
Where was that from, by the way?
Well, where it came from was just the fact that I love winter and I love snow and I love going for walks in the snow. So it really just felt like a good personal thing for me. And I've also in previous years taken West Coast Sankiem West Coast IPAs on walks out in the forest at my mother-in-law's place, and that's kind of what gave me the idea for it, because I had taken some pictures out there with like a bunch of snow-covered trees in the background and whatnot, and you know what, this just really fits. So Winter Walks is where kind of where that came from. And
interesting.
With that name, Dimitri was thinking you know what? That sounds like a bigger beer. It kind of sounds like it should be a double. And as soon as he said that, I'm like, you know what? Fucking down. I'm sold.
What was it originally? 6.5 or 7?
6.5.
Yeah, we were
originally, but
exactly.
Dimitri was thinking with the name and everything. It sounds like colder, like a cold weather beer, which then a higher ABV beer would sort of just based off of feel and nothing else.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah. So we bumped up the ABV and kept it C hops. Then the malt profile, I think, is maybe a bit maltier than what you had intended, Nathan, or...
No, I don't think so. Because we had that conversation about, do we want this to be more, do we want this to be more like American IPA malt bill, or do we want this to be more coniferous style malt bill? I think what I had said was more the coniferous style malt bill, and I think it has evolved a little bit since it was canned. because it was, I mean, it was canned on December 22nd, I want to say. So we're coming up on close to close to 2 months now. 19th. Okay, yeah, that sounds about right.
Close.
Yeah, so we're coming we're coming up just shy of 2 months. It's the 15th now, as we're recording.
Great.
So, oh, it's drinking spectacularly. So it's like, it has definitely, I think, having had several of them between this time, it has the malt bill has become more pronounced, as is expected. It's but like the resinous quality has really stepped up, which I fucking love. Yeah, I'm losing track of of how the conversation went with how we wanted the malt bill to go, but I cannot say enough how fucking happy I am with the end result of this. From the day it was canned to right now, I'm so overjoyed with how fucking delicious this beer is.
Yeah, we really enjoy it as well. I was saving this last can for today, but
cute.
I mean, yeah, it's it's just, classic C hops. I don't know, it just speaks to our, what we love doing and what we love drinking as far as hoppy beers. Same as with the beer we did with you, Craig. They're just not your typical for now what you see hoppy beers, and they tend to be more what we gravitate towards, and so it's fun when people actually want to jam on shit like that. We did Interstice as well, which might have been in the fall. Can't remember.
Yeah, that sounds right.
We did with Third Moon and Blood Brothers, and when they hit us up and they were like, do you want to do something like that? And we were like, fuck yeah, we're doing it anyway. So let's go. And just a great, both of them are a great group. Like, we love, obviously, Third Moon are twins, so there's a closeness there. And then Blood Brothers are just like fucking super awesome. So they all came down for brewing, and we went out, and the beer came out phenomenal. So whenever we find people that enjoy those styles and are curious about them, and when they see the timelessness, I think, of those hoppy beer styles, that really excites us, and it makes us feel like not everything is gone, and not that there's anything wrong with that, but not everything is going full haze, or not everything is going fully one way, and there's still a place for a style of hoppy beers that we particularly enjoy.
Oh yeah.
It's so cool, man. Like, I can't express, I don't know, I can't express how important I think it is for that reason, because whilst there is a bunch of phenomenal breweries in both Ontario and Quebec that just kill haze, including Cee and Nate, this style, like this, whether it's the West Coast or the American IPA, is I don't want to say a dying style, but it's underrepresented severely. You'd be hard pressed to find a brewery that does more than one of that style. You know what I mean? And the importance, I think, of this, it's not about keeping a beer style alive. It's just bro, there's I'm a fucking haze boy. This is why we banked the whole BAOS brand on is haze shit. But I love this, and Nate and I love this style so much that like you were saying before, Jacob, the style that we chose to collab with you is one of our favorite breweries in the whole country, was these two styles, a double IPA and an XPA, which is basically a sort of essentially an American IPA or West Coast IPA. So
it goes back to what I was saying earlier. It feels like a lot of breweries that came out in the last 10 years or so sort of came about after the explosion of haze.
Correct.
So and that's perfectly fine. that style, that movement sort of brought eyes onto like what small breweries can do. But where was I going with this? But for us that are a bit like, I know we're not even 4 years old yet, but from consuming from back in the days, that just wasn't the thing back then. So to be able to get, sort of hazy beer drinkers and sort of introduce them as a new brewery to an old school style that we're particularly fond of is really cool, because it I'm a strong believer in history repeats itself. That's why you'll never hear me shitting on New England IPAs, because I see a lot of beer geeks now going, fucking haze is played out and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, well, fucking that Usher album's going to be cool again 20 years from now. Like at one point you get old enough that, like, I don't want to age myself, but like things are cyclical. And I think that a lot of new breweries or new consumers that came on the scene sort of miss that earlier part of what brought us to that. And so we're excited to sort of, talk about those beers, those old school beers that brought us in, the Alchemist, the Lawson's, the whatever. But we're also happy to sort of reinvigorate the excitement there is for those styles of beers, because those are the beers that did it for us. So it's fun. Even newer breweries now, we're seeing like new breweries putting out West Coast IPAs more and more, and we're like, that's cool, because a lot of the segment of the market in terms of consumers, even breweries, missed out on that shit. And I was talking about Michael Jackson and early Sierra Nevada and like the Fritz Maytag and freaking Anchor Steve. Like there's some really cool North American beer history that I think if we're or at least for us at Cinquième Baron, because we're capitalizing on so much history from Europe, North America, whatever, we want to represent those styles as well as possible. We're mindful about the names we put on them and how we describe them. So that way, when people talk to us about those beers, we're able to explain them and explain the separation there is for us between, a New England, a West Coast, and an American IPA. At least our interpretation of it. And we think the flavor profiles are different enough that they warrant different, sort of names and ways to present them. And we'll find something that's within your taste. So
yeah. The coolest thing I think about Cinquième is that all of the things you just said are authentic and organic. Like you're not like putting on a mask or putting on some like, hey kids, we're doing this because it's cool. Like you do the shit you want to do because you fuck with it and you do it well. And I think that authenticity is so like welcomed and valued, because it's like, if you got to do a West Coast IPA, like who the fuck else is doing not only just a West Coast IPA series that has 10 to 20 different variants, but an American IPA series that looks like it has 5 to 10 variants right now. And you know what I'm saying? Like if breweries are going to do one, I think that's amazing and I encourage it and I applaud it. And I think it's dope that breweries would do one, I think, at this point in time. Mm-hmm. There are some of the maybe more legendary or older school breweries who have multiple West Coast IPAs, or at least have a core one, which is sick, which is like Le Castor, Nickelbrook, or fucking Sawdust, anything like that.
None of them have as many as Cinquième Baron, though.
I can't think of another single brewery. Maybe Maine Beer Co., who are goats on that shit. Like
no, but there's something to that as well, right? Like the breweries you name, whether it's Castor, Sawdust, or let's say Nickelbrook. I mean, they were there way before we were. Like we got into the market when like untapped tickers were a big thing. So you sort of had to keep the consumer
up with
engaged.
The cool kids.
Yeah, you had to sort of come up with new shit all the time, because if it was I don't
if
know.
it was the same
we're
thing repeated over and over,
Yeah,
like,
and
maybe
we're
they
trying
wouldn't
to
have
buck that trend and bring it back, I think, to where there are flagships and there are brands, or not, like there is a specific beer you can trust that you can keep going back to, like Céleste, that's always going to be available. Like, don't kid yourself. Like, 80% of the market is still that. And we want to speak to those consumers, and if only to, bring eyes more and more towards microbreweries, then we'll keep doing that with our, our Céleste that's available everywhere, or not everywhere, but, as much as it is, and is available full time, because we do get that repeat customer that doesn't give a fuck about anything else we do. It's just like, Céleste is the best fucking beer, and, whatever. And so we do get to tap into 80% of the market. We obviously don't hit up 80% of the market, but we do get those consumers that are just loyal to one specific brand.
right.
And then we try to hit the other side of the market, which, I always call it the Nike Jordan model. Like, you put out like 500 pairs of Jordans to sell, 5,000 pairs of Nikes at Athlete's World. So you try to keep the beer geeks engaged with the variety, and they sort of keep the chatter strong enough so that
That's an interesting analogy. I
it
get it.
is.
At first, I was like, man, fuck Jordans, because I'm an easy guy. But, like, I see what you're saying. Like, you're right, because Jordans are the more, like, harder to get stuff, and then the Nike general stuff are the ones that...
But think about what
I see what you're saying.
does for Nike.
No, you're 100% right.
So I need winter walks and Route 66, and what else are we drinking tonight? And Lucide Dream Sumatra to go to work for Des Moines and Céleste.
You're right. You're sort of hitting all the market with the different stuff, but you're doing it in, and this is kind of what you referred to earlier, Jacob, that we talk about here a lot, and I was mostly inspired by Burlington Beer Co., and I got to meet Joe the last time we went through Vermont, and he's a G, and they were the ones who did it first that I saw, that brought back their core brands 4 times a year. Like, once every quarter, then another core brand would come be like, and I was like, yo, this is like such a cool thing, because there'd be like the new beers for the tickers, like the untapped folks, but there'll be every batch of their, this beer would come back in, and they'd be like, oh man, this is the best batch yet. And I there's something about that I'm noticing, as as deep as we all are in with beer right now, that, like, not just myself, but like my friends, like you guys, all the different people that I talk to in beer are more interested in, like, that consistency. Like, yo, give me that new batch of Des Moines, give me that new batch of Céleste. I want to give me that new batch of Mixtape Green. I want to fucking try. Yo, I can't wait for that. I think that is, like, it's so cool to me now to see this thing dialed in it, and to see a brewery excited about the new batch of a...
It's refreshing. It's
Yeah.
really, really refreshing.
Because what are you going to do? You're going to roll the dice on some, like, untested random first time they've ever done a recipe, or the 10th time that they've done this recipe, and they're like, oh, guys, this is the one. I'm so fucking,
Well,
That's
yeah,
cool.
they're beers. It's not Pokemon Go. Like, you gotta. No, but it's true, because a lot of people, like, I go, you go
Add
on
that in, Nate,
Untappd,
please.
and
I am.
you're just
I
like
see.
reading comments, and you're like, why am I reading Yelp to help guide my Michelin star restaurant to where I want it to be? Like, it
Right.
doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And so for us, it's a matter of dialing it in to where we want it to be, and then the market responds how it responds. Like,
Yeah.
either they don't like your shit or they do. But even with the collabs we did with you guys, I'm not gonna, like, if we do winter walks or we did Straya like 5 times, it would be
It's
fucking
Straya.
better the 5th time than it would the first time. I guarantee you. Like,
Yeah.
there's no logic behind a one-off being better than a mainstay in your portfolio.
Yep. I understand
100%.
the thinking behind both, and I feel like as time has gone on, I've learned to appreciate the former, like the mainstay. Whereas, like, and I think a lot of consumers have, and it comes back to something we were talking about earlier, whether it's the economic times where people are like, you know what, I've got X amount for my beer budget for the week or month. I can't risk rolling the dice on this new thing. But if I know that Céleste has been done 57 times and this new batch of Céleste is fucking on point, I'm going to go and buy a 6-pack of that as opposed to 2 cans of this new one. And
the new batch of Céleste is always on point. Céleste is dialed in.
Right, but
they don't tweak it anymore, you know?
Okay.
So
that's a fair point.
If they're picking up the 57th batch of Céleste, it's because they enjoyed the first 56. And it's really that easy. And there's
but it might have taken 10 batches before you got to where you think, and then you might have done the last 46 and be like, oh, that shit was cool. But
Absolutely.
It's like, can you roll the dice on that and you know there's a guarantee that it's going to be incredible, whereas you roll the dice on a one-off, it can go either way. It's probably going to be good because it's your favorite brewery and you know you like these people and you like the way what they do, but it could go either way. And I've heard from consumers across the board, whether friends or people who commenting or whatever, that they are sometimes less inclined to roll the dice. There's going to be people who are just going to roll the dice every time. They don't give a fuck because they want their untapped to go up and blah blah blah. But there's now others who are like, oh man, like, you know, I'm not getting a raise for a bit, things are a little tight, interest rates have gone up, my mortgage is fucked, so you know what, if I'm going to drink, I'm going to make sure I'm drinking good. So I'm going to get Céleste and Des Moines, and that's going to be my 2 beers because I know that they're great. And I'm never going to have to question the quality of those beers. I'm never going to be, like, disappointed. Yeah, and it was an interesting change of thinking is all.
Well, for sure, because there was a newness to it all at first when... You know, but there still is. Like, I'm saying this, and Saint Barrette is pointing out like 5 to 6 beers every 2 weeks. So, you know, take it with
you guys aren't dropping small amounts. You guys are dropping some shit regularly.
Yeah, but a lot of them, if you look on 5 or 6 beers, there's going to be 3 or 4 of them at least that are going to be
like
returns. Something you haven't seen in 6 months or 8 months or whatever.
Which makes it fun, though. I think it maintains the fun. I think people underestimate that.
Yeah, no, I think so, and it just, you know, you get consistency out of your beers, out of your production, and it's I don't know. We're over 200 individual recipes at this point in less than 4 years. So we've got a portfolio to go back to and pick and choose from.
Did you say how many?
Over 200.
That's more than, that's like basically one a week. Yeah. For 4 years. One a week for 4 years. 52 weeks in a year.
Is. Yeah. There you go.
Fucking hell.
So it's a lot of beer. And, you know, some of them hit, some of them miss. And we're trying to, you know, obviously we're always trying to make sure, like, if we did an American Pale Ale and now we're doing a new one. Like, there's some Pale Ales that we wanted. For example, Midnight Ride was a Pale Ale that we really wanted to...
Yeah.
Well, we weren't entirely... That wasn't exactly where we wanted to be. So we had to sort of put that one aside for a while. And then we came out with Flanelle, which is closer to what we wanted to be. So we're starting to get it dialed in. Like, there's shit we're doing. You know, consumers don't even know. Like, we're trying stuff out, and they're all good. If they're not good, we're not putting them out. Like, Saint Barrette will dump a full fermenter before we put our name on a bad beer. Like, we're just not doing that. Like, and that's a very important thing with the price of beer, the economy being what it is. If people are paying $5, $6, $7 for our beer, our end of the contract is that beer is going to taste like $5, $6, $7 at least. So that's, you know, we take that very seriously, and that's our you know, we put our logo on it, we put our name on it. Like, it's really important to us. So yeah, it's just the our end of the contract anyway with our consumers is to make sure the beer is top notch. But like I said, to sort of loop it back in, like, the more we get to work on a beer or on a beer style, the better it is. obviously, for sure.
Yeah. It's such a cool conversation, like you said, because you notice that we've been having it here, and I feel like I'm really happy to hear that you said that, because I feel like I want to push that narrative that, like, yo, like, the new stuff is super sick, but, you know, don't front on something that comes back 4 times a year, and then or sometimes less, twice a year, 3 times a year, if you can get it, you know it's going to be better, and then you know it's like, you know, it's a home run for when you spend your money, and you know you're going to love it, and that goes for every brewery. And I know there's a lot more breweries that are doing that now, and I just think it's like, I don't know, it's like it's strangely refreshing and cool to me that it's happening, and that I'm seeing a lot of people embrace that and be interested in that. It's just like, it's cool because it supports the brewery, and just, isn't everybody happy at the end of the day? The brewery's happier with the product, and you're like, well, I'm not rolling the dice, but, you know, maybe you get a 6-pack of the one, you get 1 can, or, you know, 1 can of each of the new ones, and if you like it, maybe that shit will come back in 3 to 6 months, and you're like, yo, that shit was killer last time, it's back again. They've probably made it better. Yeah,
and that's how I personally consume. Usually if I'm having like the most stuff I drink is beer. You know, I love wine, whiskey, I love a bunch of cocktails, whatever, but like, I'm still first and foremost a beer guy. And I'll have, like, you know, whatever X amount of the one or the few beers that I know are sure values, and I'll try a new one for like 1. But like, if it's bad, I'm not having fucking 5 or 6 bad beers to face on any one given night. So, I mean, there is something to be said for that repeat customer, and it is still, despite what people might think, the biggest trend in consumer habits in beer. So at least at Cee and for our business, we're trying to tap into that, you know, that segment of consumers, and trying to create that repeat customer, whether it be with Cobus, Céleste, or Citadin, you know, our beers that are always available. And if, you know, cool, if Céleste is your brand that's always in the fridge, then I'm not going to fight you on that, you know?
It makes sense, man. I love it. How do you guys feel about a piss?
I think it's about time.
Yeah. I'm hanging there. How about we do that?
Yeah,
and we'll
me
see
too.
You
I'm
guys.
like,
yeah,
right.
we're all ready to go. We'll see you guys in a second. Oh, how do you guys
And
feel?
we're back.
The bladders could not be emptier, and the glasses are somewhat filled, and we're going to fill them some more. But yeah, so I guess we were saying previously, just, it's a wonderful thing, I think, to expose people to all of these different versions of IPAs. Really is kind of like the TLDR of all of our messaging, is that all of the different hoppy beers have value, and it's really dope that Sankiem basically caters to all of that. So whatever you're into.
All the beers have value, not just the
Absolutely.
That's a great point. And I feel like that's that's something that I've I don't know, I feel like beer, like, think about it like this, right? Like, the 3 of us were into beer, and Jacob, you alluded to this earlier, where we got into beer, you know, maybe drinking domestic lagers, and then that led to European lagers, and then that led to, you know, red ales, brown ales, porters, stouts, West Coast IPAs, Belgian, and then, then you got into maybe the haze, the smoothies, pastry stouts, blah blah blah, and then you kind of come back around through the wheel into sort of like this larger appreciation of where it all originated from. But there are some people who discovered craft beer in, say, 2020, and they only know haze, maybe, you know, slow poured pills or Luca pills. They know pastry stouts and they know smoothie sours, and that's all they fucking know. Like, they don't know this, and it's not through any fault of their own. It just happened to be when they got into beer. You go to what's popular, and what's popular are all of those. That's like listening to Drake. You're going to come into hip hop, you're going to go listen to what's popping, but you're not going to go to Mos Def or Kweli or the early Kanye or something like that. Like, it's interesting.
But when you get into it enough, you might come around to that at some point. If you,
100%.
If you get far enough into your journey, you'll probably come around to that.
I wouldn't say
that's the
probably,
thing.
say
If
definitely.
If you're willing to dig in the crates enough, you'll get to that good stuff. We're just at the part in North American beer history where this is where the market is. We're just not that brewery. We're a brewery that appreciate Belgian styles and European lagers, and we want to do all of that. And I think there is sometimes too a bit of a lack of North American, or maybe not North American, maybe more Canadian beer identity. And I think our sort of identity is in a bunch of people coming over and bringing those styles over, and us looking at the US. And I think I don't want to plug Link Up into this, but I will.
No, please do.
Yeah, I think I think there's a way to sort of bridge that and find our own Canadian beer identity in all of that, in that everyone that's in Canada, there's beer culture everywhere, and there's culinary cultures everywhere, and we can learn from every culture that makes up Canada. And I think that's the way our beer culture can evolve. I think we're not native from here, as white Canadians. We're like colonists, and I'm not trying to get into the whole thing. But I think being more open to flavor profiles from all over the place and integrating that into our beers is probably a way to have a beer culture that's reflective of all of our population.
I think that's great, man. And to be honest, I'm glad you brought up Link Up because I want to talk about it anyway. Mm-hmm. And Tiff and I did we did an episode, it was 147, I think, where we basically filmed our session at the OCB conference in October. And one of the examples we gave was Sanky Barrette for multiple reasons. And obviously, we're all we should probably just talk about it as well. Link Up, Nate has been the most steadfast supporter of everything Link Up. But the thing that Sanky I think does the best, you mentioned all of the different styles. So basically, if somebody who isn't a white bearded male, which is the kind of joke of the bearded white guy that comes into beer, that basically runs
the three of us right now.
The three of us right now,
literally,
white guys with beard,
yeah.
Which is ironic and funny, but we acknowledge it and it's cool. It's fine. That's been traditionally the main target market for whatever the fuck reason of craft beer, and at the very least, so Sankyam offering multiple exquisite examples of all of the different styles, I think is step one to all of this. But one of the things we brought up was the way that you guys organically have collaborated with different people in the industry, in your community, industry too, but also the community. And I think that's so dope. You have events where you have DJs, might be a black DJ playing different stuff, or different DJs from different cultures. Then you have pop-ups, different food trucks or whatever it might be, pop-up foods from all different cultures. And one thing that you told us, Jacob, that I thought was the coolest is that you got reached out to by I forget what it was, maybe it was an Ethiopian restaurant, be like, hey, one of my friends owns this restaurant and they'd popped up at your brewery and they really had a great time and I'd love to do the same thing. And then what you're doing is expanding the influence of craft beer and the access to craft beer to all of these different communities who don't know that it exists. And truly, I don't give a fuck what anybody says. This is the only way for it to win. And there's a lot of negative talk about diversification online that I see, and it kind of pisses me off because it's it's misrepresented, and it's not diversification for the sake of it. It's diversification for the betterment of it. It truly is going to make craft beer better if everybody is into it. Look at it. Drill it down. Fuck society. Look at beer. If everybody looks like the three of us, That's kind of boring, no? Like, cool. But then if there's an Ethiopian person and then there's someone from Jamaica and there's someone from Cambodia, like, isn't that cooler? Because they might be like, yo, we use this spice in our shit. Why don't you put that in their beer? Why don't you this beer, this export stout might pair perfectly with this dish? I'm like, oh, fuck, that's crazy.
Like, you can bring so many more communities under the craft beer tent. Like, how can that not be better? It's boring as shit. Like you're saying, it's boring as shit if it's not if it's nothing but
if it's a monoculture.
Yeah,
black women in Africa started craft beer. So why the fuck is it white dudes with beards that are running the show? It just like I always want to I'm always trying to think of the community at large, right? And I understand there's a bunch of people who think DEI isn't a great thing because it's DEI for the sake of DEI, but I really genuinely in my heart and soul believe that in beer, I mean, I think in overall, it's just better if everyone who's here is involved in a lot of different things because the different perspectives can make things better. I'm in an interracial relationship. Jacob, you are the same thing. And it's like, I know that my girlfriend's perspective on things I'm like, oh, fuck, there's so many things I've learned over the 13 and a half years of being with her. Like, I'm like, oh, that's crazy. I never thought of that. Mm-hmm. And imagine in beer, like if everyone is exposed to it, it just makes beer better. It's going to make the product better. It's going to make think about in Indian food, right? India has Kingfisher primarily as one of their main beers, which is just like an Indian or whatever macro lager, and it's fine. It's great. You have go to an Indian restaurant, you have Kingfisher, classic. It slaps. But what if Winter Walks pairs better with Vindaloo shrimp than a Kingfisher? Like, you won't know that because you don't know that the spicy notes of that curry match perfectly with the piney, bitterness of this beer, and then it just enhances this flavor profile, and all of a sudden your mouth is having a fucking orgasm and you're like, Jesus Christ, what's going on here? And there's going to be people from India who never knew this existed, and there's going to be people from everywhere who never knew this existed, and you're like, why are we depriving ourselves of these experiences by not sharing them with everybody? And it tends to be that most communities outside the white bearded male community aren't aware of it. So like it's just so it's so interesting, and that's where Link Up was kind of born from, was just this real genuine place of like, yo, like there's so much that we can do with this. Why is the industry not doing this?
Yeah, and just in terms of just representation for people to identify, to see people who look like them and feel like they belong in a brewery. It's just so important, I think. And like I said, just in terms of us developing and us being, in Canada, developing our sort of beer culture identity. I was listening to Martin from Coureur des Bois talk about, Czech Republic is fine and refined, and Belgium is yeasty and spicy. I don't quote me on this. And then America was big and bold. And then, but what are we as I think he was talking about Quebec. But what are we as far as the Canadian beer scene? And I just think because of our makeup that multiculturalism is something that no one has looked into in terms of beer and what it can do. Well, not no one, that's not true, but no one in North America seemed curious enough, aside from maybe Dogfish Head, that seemed to just go all over the place and figure that, try different things. But I even heard of a grain that's grown in Africa that's gives similar, I don't want to get this wrong, but something similar to I don't know if it's two-row malt or Pilsner malt or whatever, but similar results at a fraction of the price. It can be grown really economically in Africa because of the soil and conditions and whatever,
the terroir or whatever,
and and we're not even aware of that
Yeah.
grain. And I forget the name. I should know the name, but I mean,
See if I can find
perfect example of shit that we're missing and flavor integration that can happen. And then, you know, the thing we do with Link Up is
Sorghum.
yes, there you go.
Yeah. It's a species can survive high temperatures and drought.
There you go.
And sorghum beer brewing is one of the largest consumers of sorghum grain in Africa. So they use a lot of it there. And I think it's a lot. Oh, the interesting thing, I think it's a lot for what's it called when you can't drink when you can't have yeast? You can't have wheat.
Gluten.
Gluten free. It's like the gluten free, like celiac type of shit as well. It's
So-
one of the key things.
So, you know, it's all of this sharing of information and flavor profiles, and like for the longest time I've been wanting to figure out a way to throw like sugarcane in a rum barrel aged imperial stout.
That's fun.
And because but you know, like I try sugarcane and it, you know, it's not my favorite by any means, but there's a flavor profile there that I can associate. You know, it then becomes just a culinary exercise of like matching flavors together. And I don't know, I feel like there's a lot to learn there. And just in terms of like welcoming people in our industry, I think representation is everything. And with Link Up, you know, we're looking to accompany applicants all the way to ownership, and which is the ultimate representation, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, we're you know, we're doing what we can and with the little time we have and little resources we have, but I think it's important, and especially I think for Canadian craft beer, because I think it's going to be part of our identity. It is part of our identity. Multiculturalism is part of our identity as Canadians. And so I don't see a reason why, you know, that can sort of work within beer as well. Now, of course, we don't want to hijack ingredients and terroir or whatnot, but by, you know, having some representation in breweries and welcoming people in, then that conversation, like the way I joined beer, which was just talking with people and getting interested, and now I'm in it. You know, it's such an organic way that these things happen, and there's no forcing it. So yeah, sorry, I went on a long-winded.
No, it's good, man. It's great.
My goodness, don't apologize.
Not at all. And I think it's really cool because I feel like we haven't talked about Link Up on this series for a while as far as really what it is. And it was something that sort of BAOS and Sankiem formed back in early 2021. And it sort of launched in the summer of 2021. Essentially with that in mind, like being that, you know, Black is Beautiful came out, shouts to Marcus at Weathered Souls, and you know, we wanted to do our own kind of version of that, and sort of for a Canadian perspective, and really like we see the value of that diversification of human beings in craft beer. It's at the end of the day, like you could like, I'm always just so sensitive because everything in this world right now is political, right? So I'm always like, I never want people to look at Link Up and just think it's some like wank DEI initiative, and it's not. It's a true, like, it's like what Tiff and I did when we went to the OCB and we did that. We tried to break it down with numbers to be like, economically, it's irresponsible to not include everybody, right?
Yeah.
Particularly in this time.
Which is sad that you have to, you know, to bring it up from an economical standpoint is kind of unfortunate, because it should be like the thing to do just based on wanting to
include
share
everybody,
with your neighbors. Yeah.
Totally, right?
So,
it's silly.
but it seems like, unfortunately, that might be a way to hit some people up. Not everybody. Like we've had some anyway,
there's some great
really
breweries
into it
who
and,
really care. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
They really do
It's just
care.
the way things are going these days.
Yeah, and I'm just like, look, I'm just sort of like trying to, like, if you think about it, if you want to like step back and be like, all right, we want to impact the largest amount of people, and there's a bunch of people who are with the shits, and there are a bunch of people who maybe might not see the value of something like DEI. It has been demonized in some communities, and I understand to a degree when people say it feels like it's like forced or whatever. Like, cool. We don't talk about politics here on BOS. It doesn't really seem relevant. But if you drill it down to a sheer numbers and economic perspective, there's only so many white dudes with beards to buy your fucking craft beer. So the only way for craft beer to survive and get beyond that is to essentially attract everybody, right? And beer is for everyone. Beer was created by women in Africa like 8,000 years ago or something like that. So it's only right that what it's become today includes everybody, and that's going to, one, not only like increase the bottom line of every brewery in existence in every country, but also like the depth of it. So it's going to the breadth, but the depth. So like if everyone's involved in it, it's going to just get wider and wider. Great. But if you want to go deeper, think about it, right? Like we're talking about like Kingfisher. What can replace Kingfisher to pair with food? What can replace Red Stripe to pair, to pair with Jamaican food? What can replace? I'm just trying to think. What's that beer? I think it's called Star in Nigeria. What's going to replace Stella Artois in Belgium? There's so many like different.
Like what's going to replace
Bintang in Indonesia, Cristal in Cuba. Exactly.
Yeah.
All of these different beers that are the macro in different countries. If you can pair a craft beer with the food, there is not a cuisine on this planet that will not have a perfect pairing with a craft beer. Absolutely nothing.
That's a whole other thing as well, right? That's to sort of link it all with Link Up, our partners at Cicerone, that's one of their big missions, I think, is to have beer accepted at the dinner table in restaurants. And that's been my big thing. I know, Nathan, I think we talked about, was it with you, cheese and beer pairings? Were you there?
Yes.
We talking about, yeah.
Yep, I was.
So like, I have tons of food and beer pairing things that I like doing. And that's the next thing for us. And when we're trying to bring beers into certain restaurants, we're trying to talk to our restaurant partners, our bar partners. Well, the food is here is like this, and so this beer would be a good, and we're trying to educate different accounts on that. But that's the next battle, and I know with Michelle we were talking about that as well. And so that's another battle that we have as quality breweries, I think, is to sort of validate beer at the dinner table and the pairings and whatnot, because that's a big thing, I think, for beer. Like, you go to Belgium, you'll have cheese with beer, and it's a wonderful, absolutely wonderful pairing. Wine with cheese is great. Beer with cheese, equally great. Like, you gotta, obviously, if you're just slamming back New England IPAs and you're having it with blue cheese, it's going to be a rough go. It's going to taste like fucking orange juice after you brush your teeth. But if you have like a nice, Rochefort 10 with like blue cheese and confit something, then you're off to the races.
Well, I mean, by some measures, you could even make the case that that beer almost makes a better pairing with cheeses, because
there's more variety.
No, but not even that. But to some degree, with something with the carbonation of beer and with some sharper flavor contrasts and whatnot to cut through the fat of cheese and whatnot.
But there is the acidity to wine.
Yes, it works really, really well, better than you'd expect. Certain things like a bitter West Coast IPA, can really cut through the fat of a fatty brie or something like that.
Yeah, that would go perfect,
which would pair lovely. My personal favorite is Imperial Stout with Old Cheddar is fucking money.
Yeah, you were saying that.
Yes.
Okay, I remember that correctly. We were having that conversation because you had mentioned that
That's right.
exactly, and
That's
I've
right.
yet to try it.
I haven't tried that. That sounds
I
great.
absolutely will. Yeah. 'Cause
And
we were talking about-
like, you know what, that came up. I think I think this came up because I was having like a charcuterie spread at Cee and Nate with Chris
There you go.
one time when I had Lucide Dream, and like at one point there, like, we had a piece of old cheddar there, and I'm like, holy shit, this is fucking good.
Yeah.
See, that's amazing. And that's only like just cheese and beer. Like, how many cuisines are there throughout the cultures of the world that could have some sort of pairing like that? Like, you know, there's export stouts in the Caribbean, and they obviously go with a lot of the different food there. So you have a Lucid Dream, which is kind of a little bit more ramped up export stout with some coffee. Like, what could that go with? There's so many cuisines that, like, there's so many styles of beers and so many intricacies in the beer that can pair perfectly with basically anything. And it's
exactly.
really...
And when you get to that level of geeking out about, you know, the details and flavor profiles, and now, like, we could have a conversation about food and IPA pairing. Not right now. I'd have to try a bunch of different things, but in terms of New England IPAs versus West Coast IPAs versus American IPAs, and how they pair well with different foods. And I mean, the level of food can be intricate, but at that point, we're talking about 3 different styles of IPAs. So the level of beer pairing is also intricate. So, you know, that's when you get into finer details, and not everything is such a broad stroke. And so yeah, it's but that's the world. Like, we did a collaboration with a restaurant in Chelsea. They make like, I'm gonna say they make pizza, but it's like fucking elevated times 100 pizza. They're called Roberto's, and the guy was a Michelin star chef in Italy before he moved to Chelsea. And then we jammed on a beer. It was called Fiume Nero, which was with smoked peppers.
Yes.
But the approach to developing that beer was so culinary. Now, keep in mind, like, we're sitting across like a Michelin star chef, where you're like, gotta fucking bring your A game. So you're tasting, and the peppers are amazing. They're like these dried peppers that they had marinated. So, like, the flavor profile is crazy. You're eating them like chips. And they made a powder out of those peppers, and we had to integrate that into a beer. But that's when you kind of lose the Michelin star chef, and you're kind of like, okay, we're the fucking ones driving this bus here. Like, we're making the beer. So you got to figure out what's going to work with those flavors. So you're not even talking about a beer recipe anymore. You're talking about a recipe, point blank. Like, it's just like, you got to pair flavor profiles together, and you got to add vanilla sweetness with the heat, and then but you got to dose it perfectly. So, like, there's that approach is there. Like, it's there for us in terms of, like, the immediate Cee and Nate team. Every time we work on our own individual recipes, and triple that when we're working on a recipe of a beer that's going to be a mainstay, or, you know, a reoccurring thing. But it's you know, it's that level of preciseness and you know, preciseness and flavor that we're going for. Like, this is like 5% or 10% too bitter, or this could be, you know, 15% more aromatic, or this could, you know, the SRM is just a little, like, that's the level we're operating at. I don't know, I don't want to speak for every brewery, but at Cee and Nate, that's exactly where we are in terms of, like, the fine details. And at that point, it's fun, man. It's like I said, it's culinary. It's not even beer it's just flavors working together, and then you get the visuals. You know, I remember the old Beer Advocate website. You had to rate a beer on visuals. what was it, texture and mouthfeel, and anyway, you had these different amalgamated scores that made up a score of a beer. But we're hyper focused on all of that stuff. So yeah,
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, that's so sick. I'm loving this conversation. Do we want to bring in that final brew?
I think we should. I think it's time.
This is fascinating. So this is like something a little different, and personally, I am delighted with excitement over this one. This is one of, like I mentioned earlier, one of the greatest coffee stouts in Canada, I think.
I would agree.
Well,
and that's saying a lot, because Canada has a very big coffee stout.
A very big coffee stout.
To put its print on.
Yes.
I mean, Péché Mortel is the OG.
Internationally renowned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went to the LCBO today and grabbed some of the lady when I checked out. She said, "Oh, Judas CL? Oh, that's really hard to get. Oh." And I bought it from my friends in San Francisco. I'm going to send some out to them tomorrow, and they're going to be very excited. And I feel like the OG of Lucide Dream here it's just spectacular. It's just fucking brilliance. And
it's so fucking good.
The fact that there are 3 variants of this now, like I don't know shit about this, and I'm very excited to get this directly from you, Jacob, tonight. This is the Sumatra coffee variant.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, we are not going to sleep tonight, ladies and gentlemen.
No, that's a coffee bomb.
Yeah, we're starting this at 11:26 p.m.
Yeah, and that's okay. And that's okay, because, we don't need sleep.
I mean, you're saying this okay here, like dude who wakes up at like between noon and 1 p.m. Whereas my sorry ass is going to be up at 6 o'clock.
That's fair enough.
I'm going to be up in 6.5 hours, literally.
You know what? I got to go to America tomorrow, and I'm absolutely probably getting up about the same time.
Where are you going?
Buffalo.
Oh, what's going on there?
I have it's called a Connect Point. It's a PO box essentially. You know Connect Point? Yeah, okay. Well, not everybody knows. So I have a Connect Point, and Nate and I split a order from Burial Brewery in Asheville, North. Yeah, they just they started delivering to New York State, so I'm going there. Then I'm going across the street to Brewed and Bottled. Shouts to Chris. And he's already got some Trillium and other half their 10th anniversary stuff on hold for me. And then we're going to spend the day in Buffalo, because we never spend the day in Buffalo. We always go to Rochester or somewhere else. We're going to go to some place in Rochester. I want to go to Frequentum and maybe Mortalis. And, of course, Trader Joseph's, the GOAT, the greatest.
Oh, yeah, that's your jam, right? That's where you're going to get some of that fucking Unibrew. Do they still make that Unibrew Trader Joe's beer?
I've never seen that. I won't have no, I've never seen Unibrew do a Trader Joe's beer. If they do, I'll grab it for sure. I typically wouldn't. Well, at this point, I'm going to have enough. I'm going to be kind of over the limit, so I'm going to have to chill out on the beer by the time I get from the order to everything. But we also got Nexus. I don't know if you guys got that shit. So there's a private fucking bridge, which I only learned about. You don't even go through the normal thing. You go through a private bridge. And then you just pay some sort of toll, which is probably like $6, because that's what it is when you go for the Lewiston thing. It's different
from... You need the pass, right?
Yeah, but we have that now, because we did the interview in December. So you don't need a passport. You just fucking rock up. I'm not even bringing the passport. I've never used it yet. To be honest, I'm going to bring my passport just in case, because it's kind of scary to just fucking
That's probably a good move.
Yeah, I'm just like,
you don't want to fuck around with that.
Honestly, bro, like as simple as it sounds, I'm like, I'm not fucking with this at all. Like, I want to see what's up.
First time doing the Nexus pass?
First time using the Nexus, and then I got the Connect, and I've got like 5 pack. I got this beer coming, but I've got like 5 packages, because Yeezy.com just dropped they put everything to $20, so I got all the bunch of stuff. So I got some Yeezy stuff coming.
You say no, I don't know. I don't fucking know.
I don't know what.
Yeah, you said you said like they just dropped shit to $20. I'm like, I don't fucking know
Well,
that.
wasn't that the Super Bowl ad?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
So he put everything at $20, and the shoes were $200, and he dropped them to $20. So I went and kind of got basically almost everything in the store, but it's going to ship. That's going to come. I'm going to go back in like 3 to 4 weeks for that. But I tested it with an audio that Nate and I are splitting with Burial. Nate doesn't even know what Burial is, but I was like, trust me, you're going to love him. And we're going to rock with that, and I'm going to see what's up with... I had a friend, I got a mate who works for Mortalis, but he lives in Rochester, which is like another hour and a half. So last time I got something shipped out there, I went to see him. And that's a 3-hour return trip when I could just go right over the border, and the place where my connect point is right over the private bridge, like less than 10 minutes from there. So either way, I'm going there tomorrow, and I'm excited to give it a little bit of a crack and see what's going on. Why were we talking about that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, about getting up early tomorrow. I don't have to
Right.
rush because like they close at like 5 p.m. and it's like an hour away, so it's not a big deal, you know. And then Trader Joe's closed at like 9 p.m. There's a few things in between. Bim, bam, boom. Everyone's fucking happy. I can drink Sankiem till I'm fucking blue in the face, and we're all good tonight because I'm enjoying myself.
And in any case, you might be getting up early by your standards, but I don't believe you're getting up at 6 o'clock tomorrow.
No, like maybe 11 at most. And with that, can we cheers to an 8.5% breakfast stout with Sumatra coffee?
Yeah, we surely can.
Cheers, gentlemen. Get that in you.
Guys.
Cheers.
Oh, the nose is crazy.
Oh my god.
I'm not getting anything again. But
oh my goodness, Jacob.
I'm so glad that my sense of smell is only like just starting to come back in the last couple of days. It's still not at 100%, but I can still smell something from this.
Look, and I feel like mine from smoking weed and cigarettes over the years is kind of a little bit not where it should be, my sense of smell, but fucking hell, this is like literally ground coffee in water, like in a roastery.
Yeah. So that's from a small shop not too far from the brewery. It's called Café Aroma Select, which has been in Aylmer for I don't know how long, but it's been a while. Like I used to go there and buy Silver Needle white tea.
Okay.
And we recently, this holiday, where did we go? I can't remember. Danielle and I went and we picked up some Jamaica Blue Mountain coffee. Ooh. And nice little treat, you know. And then we went back and the guy was like, well, I make my own blend. It's called Ambassador Blend. And it's kind of made to mimic Jamaica Blue Mountain, but, you know, fucking a quarter of the price. Okay. So
that shit ain't cheap.
That's become like our go-to blend. And so when we decided to do this 4-pack, we went to see this guy and he helped us out pick a couple of coffees. So we have the regular in the 4-pack that we sold it. They're all gone by now. So don't bother.
Yeah, by the time this episode drops, it's long gone.
Yeah, but the regular Lucide Dream is still available, and the rest is in distribution. But the regular one is fantastic. Yeah. And then we went with some just some different flavor profiles for a Sumatra, and so a Sumatra version, we got an espresso version, and one that's a bourbon style Canadian whiskey barrel aged version from Bareface Distillery. So we made a fun little 4-pack. And the Sumatra one, I think, was the one we had the least of. And it was, like I said, I can't smell anything now, but it was just a smack in the face of coffee when I had it, when really we tested it out of the fermenter. So I'll have to, the other ones I kind of know my way around, but I'm having this one right now, and I'm like, shit, can't smell, can't taste anything. My last taste was out of the fermenter, so... So yeah, you tell me about it.
Well, look, I'm getting like so much espresso. Like, it's just straight pure coffee. It's super bitter, but it's also really smooth, creamy, fruity. Very balanced. It's almost like the original Lucide Dream on steroids type of thing. Like just ramped up.
Like,
I had
like really, really amped up coffee vibes.
Yeah, I had it maybe a week ago, I think, because I had a small can that Nate got me, and I think I had it last week, and I was like, this just slaps just how it always does, but this is like, it's ramped up. It's definitely more bitter, more coffee, more intense, probably not optimal 11:35 p.m.
But it's nice to come out with that 4-pack because when we were developing Lucide Dream, which I mentioned like way early in the podcast, that it's one of our first recipes that we had developed. We had went to our friends at Brown Bag Coffee Roasters, and we took our time. Like we really sat down, went through a bunch of different coffees, and just ended up with the one we settled on for the base version. But it's fun. Like coffee is almost like hops. Like each different coffee will bring its own flavor profile, and they'll make the beer a little bit different. So you can almost see this as like a Lucide Dream 4-pack with like 4 different hops kind of thing, and except instead of hops, it's like different
coffees,
coffee or different ways to approach it. So it's a fun, like we're not reinventing the wheel here. There's a bunch of breweries that have done coffee stouts and have fucked around with different coffees. Obviously, like Ciel being one of them. Like we're not trying to copy them by any means. But it's just something we wanted to do because they've given us such a great coffee stout that we fucking want to explore coffee stouts now. So yeah.
So good. Dude, I mean, like, I'm so happy that you did this because Lucide Dream, and this is something that Nate kind of alluded to earlier with Dimitri's use of oats and just whatever the fuck he is doing with the body for the OG Lucide Dream is something that nobody does. Whatever he's doing is some sort of black magic insanity that doesn't make any sense. That it unless for 8.5% it should be 15% the way that the body is. It's just incredible. So then
my thing with this is that like he achieves a level of creaminess with the malts that you would expect should be a milk stout, like one with lactose.
That's what it was with lactose. But zero, and it's barely any sweetness. None.
It's all malt. This is all malt. He's a fucking malt wizard. That guy.
It's just so crazy. Like,
well, that was their our production team, Zim, Etienne, and Gab. They're so
fucking good. They're so good.
Yeah,
all of them.
Yeah, they're
genius.
They're like, and that's why we were talking earlier. Like, it's unfortunate, like Dimitri won't jump on a podcast because of shit. Like, I mean, but at some point, but at some point, it's just way too nerdy anyway. Like, honestly, it gets like, what are you talking about?
None of us will know. Maybe the brewers listening will understand.
But they're very good with their malts. Like they love malty beers. They love coffee stouts. They love dark beers, dark lagers. So it's it's something about the production team, especially the current team we have as it is now. They're very much into dark beers, and they know how to work with that. So it's it's full marks to them, honestly.
100%. But I think that's such an unappreciated skill right now. There's so much is focused on the hop bill on so many things right now.
Yeah, but we have the hops on the side of our cans, but like I was saying earlier, to me it didn't make sense to put the hops on the side of the cans because we should put the malts and we should put the yeast and we should put everything, but
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
This
is so spectacular. I can't express.
Especially when it Jesus Christ, I'm so sorry. But
it's the fineness of the coffee.
Oh my god! It's especially with a beer like this. I feel like is such it like it's where the brewing team's skills like really shine so much, and like in ways that can't be replicated by other breweries. It's a thing of like, you know, if you use peacherine in a beer, like you know there's like it's a cheat code hop. Like there's so many brewers that could make a great hazy IPA with peacherine or Rawaka or the like or X variations of Citra or whatever. But like to have such a skill with malt is like such
Rare.
an under like is such a rare and underappreciated skill, and I feel like there are not that many people that could make a like a coffee stout that is this fire. Like this stands on an island of its own.
It's just insane.
There's no question.
Thank you. I
It's bonkers,
really
man.
appreciate that.
Like, I kind of like. It's just so fucking crazy. Lucid Dream has been so good for so long. Like since when did it come out? Probably 2020, I imagine, right?
2020. That was one of the first
one
batch.
of our first
2020.
first beers. Yeah.
It's never been mid. It's just been exceptional since the beginning, and it was something that like I kind of like Nate, Noah, and myself have kind of been in like wonderment, if that's a word, of like, what the fuck is happening with this? Like, how is this beer this good at 8.5%? And you know, we're all everybody's marker is Pesce, which is 9.5 or whatever, but like, and everyone knows that's the GOAT, and that's cool, and that's is what it is, right? But Jesus fucking Christ, Jacob, if Lucid Dream isn't a very close second, and this is not blowing smoke or any bias or anything.
Not at all.
Like
Not at all.
I truly, and I know Nate means the same. Like it's just insane.
Yeah.
It's one of the most. And now with 4 variants, I was so fucking amped. The fact that there was 4 variants of this goddamn beer. This is so wonderful that you guys are doing this. Is this a one-time thing, or perhaps there might be a series of variants in future of?
I think it's Lucid Dream is going to keep being its regular Lucid Dream self.
Okay.
And then probably once a year we'll have fun with like a barrel and 2 other coffee variants and just do like a one-off. Because it's not a beer that we can put out like a number. I think we put out Lucid Dream like 2 or 3 times a year.
Okay.
But it's not something that we can have regularly because like dude Seattle owns that market, you know. And that's fine. Honestly, like that's what I want to I want to see that like OG beers getting their
props, right?
Their props. So with that beer, I think there's always a level of uncertainty whenever it comes out. From myself, anyway, I don't want to speak for anybody else at the brewery, but just to like, okay, is it like I never know. I think with like our American IPAs, with our, a lot of our lagers, I'm fully confident in like, we'll just fucking put that up against anybody. Like I'll stand behind it. With this, I'm also not the biggest stout drinker or not the biggest strong stout drinker. So I'm not the greatest reference for that, but that's just me. We've got a bunch of other people at the brewery who are very much into stouts, and so they're able to come up with this shit.
They're on the money, my man. It's just, it's something like without exaggeration or bias. It's something pretty special. Like I really think
really
that what you have with Lucid Dream, period, like the OG is very special, and then. This is the first of the 3 variants that I personally had. Nate, have you had any others? This is your first 2?
I had the espresso variant on tap at the pub.
Amazing. So, like, I haven't had any of these. I've got them right here behind me, but I'm going to stash these back in the fridge and start rocking these soon. But I'm like, I was just looking forward to it because of the ridiculous body that the original has that it shouldn't have any business having that. Like Nate said, like with malt, without lactose, without any other crazy, adjuncts. it just doesn't make any sense. And it's just it's so fun. I feel like this is like a fun way to celebrate the brand. And it's like a brand that you guys have had since the beginning, since the first year.
Yeah. Like I said, 3 of the 5 beers we've had, so Lucide Dream, Céleste, and Moines, are all from way
OG.
back.
Right.
Yeah.
And like, I
How
mean,
fucking dope is that?
isn't that cool? And the fact that like it just keeps getting better and better. And I feel
there's
like,
there's a bunch of them, like Peaky Porter. Every time
bro, I
have
had
Peaky
that like
Porter, I'm
last
like,
weekend. Fuck off.
Yeah,
It is,
it's
it's
one
glorious.
of my favorite dark beers, and that's a fun thing about.
so
I
good.
think what we do is we can go from a lager to
Fill
an
'em on
IPA
the-
to dark beer. Yeah, the brown ale.
I love
but
that.
we
The
can
stout.
go
What's the
from
stout?
all those
5% stout.
We have a couple. Fiddle is our
Fiddle.
oatmeal
That's
stout.
one. Fiddle is
Yeah.
fucking oatmeal stout is disgusting. I love that
Oh,
shit.
oh my God. Okay, I finally remembered the name of the IPA you were trying to think of before. It was Del Boca Vista.
That's the one.
Del Boca Vista.
Del
That's the
Boca
one.
Vista.
Del Boca Vista. It was the
Little Seinfeld reference.
Is that what that is? I love
Yeah.
it. Big up Seinfeld. I'm gonna pull that up right now. But just you guys have had like look at this. We're all trying to like. There's so many, like you said. There's Del Boca. That's the fucking one, Nate. Oh my God, I gave the 4.5. Motea, Moteca, and Mosaic. Get the fuck out of here. That was money.
But you know, but you know
I will
what?
bathe in that beer.
Like, as far, yeah, and I was fucking creaming over that one. However, in 2023, I think, as far as the hazies go, Puff the Magic Dragon was fucking money.
So Etienne, one of our brewer, had that as his favorite
Big
beer
ups.
of 2023,
Yeah.
and he was like, he was
that
like,
was
he won't believe
money.
it because he doesn't like hazies that much.
Right,
But
but
he
you love
was
that one.
like, Puff the Magic Dragon's
No,
probably
that was
my beer of
crazy.
the year because it was exactly what they wanted it to be. Like, it was dank,
Yeah.
it was weedy. It was
I had
like,
that in May. Oh,
It's-
I must. Oh yeah, that was.
It's a
shit was
fuck,
May.
like it's a fucking weird thing. Like I'm not a weed guy at all. And haven't been for quite a long time. But I love thick dank in a beer, and that one delivered that in spades.
yeah.
Oh yeah, that shit was killer, man. It was like, oh man, there's just so much stuff you guys do. It's like, look at this, look how excited we're all getting, and like all of these different beers. That's like we're doing at different periods of the year, whether it's pop. And I just checked, like I had that after I got back from Florida, and I remember that being fucking fire because it was like the 420 beer, like. All of the Lucide Dream variants, the Del Boca Vista, which is like, I guess that's almost, what is that from? Is that a Florida place?
No, it's a fictional retirement home in Seinfeld where, his parents just moved to Florida to Del Boca Vista condo complex, and they're fucking going around on golf carts, and it's just, whatever.
That's fun.
Comedy that pops up, and there's a few of them that we've made over the years. We actually have Recyclops that's like a reference to The Office coming out in a couple of weeks, so it's just like
That's awesome.
with hazies, like I could talk about the naming for Des Moines and all of the traditional beers, and with some of the hazies we just try to have fun with it. Like it's
Best
just
way to go.
whatever.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So
Because we
this-
do have that, joking around vibe to us at the brewery. We're always joking around. So we try to bring out a lot of our personality. Like a lot of it is very serious in terms of like the naming, and we spend a lot of time making sure like the beers are sort of presented the right way, and then just get this like bubble to the brain every once in a while where it's just like, fuck it, let's just do a hazy and call it whatever. And just like, to be able to do that every now and then is kind of a fun thing. And it's not a luxury we allow ourselves with some of the more historical styles, I guess.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
See, that makes sense. And that's awesome. That's just fucking
Yeah, I love
cool,
that.
man.
Love that.
It's just fun, and it shows in the quality of the stuff. Like obviously, like if you're saying that the like Nate, you're remembering that, and that beer was so incredible, and that was just a random one-off, isn't that? I feel like it almost like contradicts my own point earlier about like, hey, isn't it really cool that breweries get to do, over and over, get to do the beers, to really like drill them down, but sometimes you can hit that bitch out the fucking park with
with
one-off.
those big hazy bold flavors.
It was only 7%.
Like,
it's not that big. It's not that big.
No, but there's a lot of like if you throw enough hops in a beer, like you're gonna cover up that that malt backbone, or you can if we did that with a lager, like you'd be able,
I get it.
like if we just fucked around with a lager, you'd be like, okay, that doesn't work here. Like,
different concept. Concept.
Yeah, but that's why those beers are named a certain way, and we have fun with them, and others take more time, and we take more time. It's just, I don't know. I feel like it's a natural progression.
Well, you know what? Like similar beers along that same line, like Hopism was fucking spectacular.
It was so good.
And that was like a Galaxy Nelson bomb, and that's a glorious
good
combo.
memory.
It was fucking delicious.
And then the Stoutism was killer too. Like,
oh my god, Stoutism was so fucking good. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So this is probably all to say, there's absolutely no knock to one-off beers, because sometimes one-off beers can be home runs. Not. And those home runs can turn into regular beers if you're like, yo, that beer was so good, we're going to bring it back and we're going to keep doing it.
Yeah,
and
some beers will come out under a name, and then we know we got to tweak it, but we tweak it so much that we can't call it the same thing, so we got to, so there's all of these intricacies to breweries and how they people don't know what's going on in the background kind of thing, and sometimes you're just workshopping a beer until it gets to where you want, and then you present it as whatever the name is, and that's like the final product. That's it. And the other thing that really helps us, I feel, at St. Gambaro, is that we invested in a pilot system, which when we're not, unless we're super confident about a beer style and that we're going to nail it, and we're not going to, it's not going to go down the drain, we're like putting that thing through a pilot batch, at least one, sometimes two, sometimes three. So
how big is it?
It's a 60-liter system. Okay. So the way we have it is we brew 60 liters, and then we have 3 20-liter fermenters. So let's say for example, say we were trying out an American IPA. So we would brew the same malt bill, like we'd extract all the sugars from the malt bill. Then we could take that sugar water, bring it into take those 60 liters, spread them in 3 20-liter fermenters, and then we could try a different yeast in all 3 of them. We could try different hop profiles in all 3 of them. So we're kind of trying out 3 different recipes in one kind of thing, and then you can try those 3 separate fermenters and be like, okay, I like the flavor profile from that one, the yeast character is better in that one, and you can sort of, you get what I'm saying? Like, you've got basically 3 small batches of one batch.
That's cool.
So yeah, so that's how we're testing out recipes before putting them out, because again, our brand is not putting out beers that we're just trying out, and if they don't work, whatever, we'll see you on the next one kind of thing. We value the trust that that people have in our brand, and so that's, like I said, when you're spending $5, $6, $7 on a can of beer, our end of the contract is to deliver $5, $6, $7 worth of beer. So putting it through a pilot system to start things off doesn't seem like such a bad idea.
Not at all. Yeah. I don't know if everyone has the sort of ability to do that, but I think it's that would be the optimal situation, to just roll the dice, test it out before spending thousands of dollars on all the ingredients on this big ass thing that may or may not connect.
Well, what's even worse is having consumers spend thousands and thousands of dollars on a batch of beer isn't right. Like I said, that's our end of the deal. Like, you got to deliver for that. So that's why, earlier you asked me, like, what would you think people know you for? And I say, hopefully it's for being a dependable brewery. Because, we might not hit you with the newness all the time, but like, we're going to hit you with the consistency, the quality of the product, and we'll stand behind it. So it depends on consumer habits and if we're reaching them or not, but we certainly believe in what we're doing and the way we're approaching it.
But when it is that random new, I
Y'all
mean,
fucking
like,
knock it out of the park.
I was gonna say, some like my favorite hazy IPA was a one-off random. And
for sure, but it was a hazy IPA. It wasn't like our first ever Belgian white that we just fucking tried, and so we're comfortable with the hazy IPAs, but we wouldn't put out,
like, a
for
new
example,
style
a Belgian white. Yeah, exactly.
A style that's new to you guys for the first time at this big scale without testing that bad boy.
Exactly.
Yeah, man, that's super cool. I love that. So I feel like it's like you sort of like painted, like, we never actually asked the question, hey, Jacob, what's changed? What's been happening since 2020? I kind of feel like we like painted that picture very.
I feel like we have, for sure.
And you know what? I feel like a lot of people don't know what Cinquième Baron is. Like, they taste if they're in our market, they know the community involvement, and they know the events, and they know we try to shine a light on our area, and that's our community. They know us as that, and they appreciate the beer. Once we get outside of our market, they know us for the beer, but they don't know us for the community stuff at all, because we're just that's not our community.
And that's
yeah.
That's the kind of thing that you can't really get a taste for unless you've been there and and kind of experienced the vibe firsthand.
Exactly. Yeah. But Cinquième Baron is all of those things. It's pilot batches, it's testing out. So for the people who think we're a community-based thing, it's like they might miss the attention and focus on detail we put into our actual product, which is our beer. And then for the people outside, they might not be interested enough in the out-of-town brewery to understand the attention and focus we put into our beer. So, I mean, that's why you were asking me, what do you think people's perception of your brewery is? I don't know. I know the amount of detail and attention that goes into it. We're trying not to be pretentious about it. We're just trying to do, like I said, hold up our end of the deal, which is delivering what we feel is fair value for the price that's being asked of consumers for small breweries. But it's a lot of things that go into it. And it's a lot of things that, like, this brand was meticulously crafted and with a strong attention to detail, both in, when I mentioned the tap room and the pub being an element of our culture, like, we put a lot of emphasis on that. And to the people out of town, that's lost on them if you don't visit us. And, that's fine. We understand. So it's all of those little things that make it a well-oiled machine, and everyone at the brewery doing their part and bringing their level of expertise. Like, I'm the guy doing a podcast right now and graphics, but like, there's people serving the beer that's connecting with our consumers. There's people brewing the beer that's connecting with the product. There's, all of those elements that make up this small business that people may or may not really know, like, it's an odd thing, but it's a cool thing, but it's an odd thing.
It's a strange business with so many elements to it that, like, maybe the average consumer doesn't consider, like, how many moving parts a brewery has to make it like really work in an exceptional way.
Yeah.
Truly. And to touch on one point, I think pretentious is probably the last thing that anyone who has been to Saint Baron could ever could ever say of your business. I don't think anyone could ever say pretentious by any means.
No. Well, you get what I'm saying. Like, we don't.
I do.
We don't want to yell from the rooftops like we're pilot batching every shit and we're
and you don't.
And
you don't, and that's what I'm saying.
But we
that's
do.
But we do. That's what I'm saying. But you don't. But you do not. But like, I mean, you take such meticulous care with your product at every single level. Yeah. But it does not read as pretentious by any means whatsoever.
I feel like
from any point of the consumer experience.
If you drink the product, you will see what you're talking about. Like, there's no pretentiousness, which is what Nate is saying. And they would be like, oh, this is fucking like, this is not just like a, like swing and a miss. This is reps. This is we've figured this out over time together as a team with consumer feedback, with the team feedback. Like, this is like effort over 4 years. This is not just like just throwing shit out there at the world and hoping it sticks, or you wouldn't be around.
Yeah, and it's more than 4 years. There's 3 years of work prior to opening, so it's 7 years. Yeah. Like, we're talking about beers tonight, like we're talking about Des Moines, we're talking about Céleste, and we're talking about Lucide Dreams. Those beers are 7 years in the making. They're not 4 years. So, yeah, it is all of those things, and we hope that the quality of our product speaks for itself, and we hope that people connect with our approach to beer, our approach to local entrepreneurship. We're just, I don't know, we feel there's something to say about small local businesses and how it creates jobs, and how it's a bunch of passionate individuals that believe in the same thing, that get together and accept their differences and likenesses, and work towards a great product, which then shines a light on our business, which we then try to reflect out into the community, if that makes sense.
It makes complete sense. And
Absolutely.
I feel like, if anything, you guys have achieved that, like truly achieved that. It's been so cool, man. Like obviously Nate and I were friends with Chris. That's how we learned about you guys, and connected originally at the end of 2020, and then Link Up came about, and we became genuinely friends, and like it's just so fucking cool, man. Like, I'm as a mate, but as like if you want to step back a second and just see what you guys have done, it's spectacular. And you deserve all of the success, and you've changed the whole vibe of Aylmer and what's happening out there, and like, I just think it's so beautiful what you're putting out into the world.
Thanks.
And
appreciate that.
And if I can jump in there, like, even
Please.
really like change the vibe of the Quebec craft beer scene, I think. Like,
Expand.
Like, I think really elevated what the Quebec craft beer scene can offer. You moved things in a direction that the scene was unwilling to move in for a number of years. In terms of DEI initiatives, you were one of the first to jump on Black is Beautiful. You and you did it in a way that didn't seem performative. You did it 2 times. You're a founding member. Sorry, 3 times. Yes. 3 times, and like founding member of Link Up. Like, you're really putting your money where your mouth is, and like you're making it a very core part of your business, and actually like really kind of owning what what those things mean. So I think that's taking it a step further than anyone in Quebec ever did before that.
Facts.
Well, I think we're giving it an honest try.
Yes.
We don't have the answers. We're not,
I think you act like you have them.
As bearded white men, me, Dimitri, myself, and Steven.
Steven has no beard.
Yeah,
Steven's beard, it sucks. I love you, Steven. Beard, it's okay. No need.
but it's not, it's not, like, I don't know how to say this. It's not like our battle, but we're, if my wife and I have a kid, I would hope that my kid would feel welcome in the industry that I'm in, so it's a bit of a legacy thing, I think, as well, and just doing what's right and living by how I grew up, and I don't know.
I think
I
it's
can't
one of
speak
the
on different people's experiences, but
I think it's one of those things that that like in the Quebec scene, which in like I mean I don't want to paint with too broad strokes, but it's like it has lagged on certain initiatives, which which is a little bit unfortunate. But I think that Cinquième Baron has been leaders on on that in at least trying to bring the scene forward a little bit. Not not in a pretentious way, not in a performative way, but at least in a effort to bring the scene forward, to broaden the customer base, to broaden what the scene can be. I'm losing my words because
I think it's to open our doors,
yes,
or kick our doors open for people who might not think our doors are open too.
That's a good way to put it. That's a great way to put it.
And we do want to make that effort because I do feel like my friends should feel welcome in my business. I do feel like my wife should feel welcome in my business. I do. I mean, it's just a thing where it is what it is. But in terms of beer styles, and just to touch back on that, what you were saying about Quebec before, like we've had some tremendous breweries covering a wide variety of beer styles for a number of years. Like I could just name, like Dieu du Ciel, Castor, and Dunham. Just to name a few, are like three amazing breweries that have covered so much ground in terms of styles. For we're talking about Dieu du Ciel. They celebrated their 25th anniversary this year. Like Dieu du Ciel have been serving up heat for fucking a quarter of a century. So
That's
we're a product of them
truly they put Quebec craft beer on the map.
Absolutely. The three of them, Microbrasserie Charlevoix, there's a number of them, and I don't want to forget anyone, but there's a number of them, and I think in Quebec we've been blessed with like you can even go back to like Unibrew and the Belgian style beers, which were gateway beers for many Americans.
Absolutely.
So we've been blessed with like a rich beer history, I think, in Quebec for the past quarter of a century, maybe a bit more. But you got to be curious about those breweries. You got to be curious about those styles and what they're doing. And one of my best experiences that I've had was bumping into Sylvain from Unibrew and just getting to chat with him, because when I was learning about beer, I was watching their videos from their beer sommelier at their restaurant saying how you can age beer and how it pairs with food and whatever. And so for me, seeing someone like that that's been in it, and he's telling me stories about bottles being imported, and then American breweries asking them for permission to use those bottles because those are the stories that I live for. Like this is like history books for so if you're only in that early hazy, since the haze took over, that's super cool, and there's great. But there's, like I said, there's a broader beer history, whether it's in Quebec, Canada, North America, and then at large, that's really worth visiting. And if you're passionate about beer is only justifying getting shit-faced, then you're missing out on a lot of like really pertinent information and really fun stuff, I think, that makes up the whole culture. And it's not to
100%.
shit on anyone, you know, really not. But there's just a lot of history there for Quebec, for Canada, for North America, and at large that's really worth getting into because it is a really interesting story.
I couldn't agree more. And I truly believe that there's no wrong way to get into craft beer. Whatever your like whatever your introduction is, if it's hazy IPAs, if it's smoothie sours,
Perfect.
whatever it is, there's no wrong. There is no wrong way to get into craft beer. And
Absolutely.
I think for most people, if you stay with the scene long enough, you'll end up exploring the deeper history of it, and you'll end up getting into more interesting styles. You'll end up getting into the history. You'll end up getting into the culture of it, and you'll end up really kind of appreciating broadening the tent of craft beer. And like really, the longer you stay, the longer you stay in it, the more people you meet in it. Like really, like you'll get more ingrained in the culture of it, and it'll only make the scene better.
For sure. Absolutely. And the more people we get involved in too.
Yep.
Yep, definitely. Boys, this is awesome. I really need a piss. Do you want to take a piss and then we'll wrap it up?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah?
Okay.
All right.
Sounds
Let's
good.
piss and then we'll wrap it up. Piss time,
All
guys. Oh, the bladders could not be emptier. I love this
There
new
we
pause. We've been pausing. This is what we've been doing. But look, I really feel like, do you think we said, I feel like we really like told the story without asking you directly, hey, Jacob, what happened in the last 3 years or so? Like, I really feel like we got a strong picture of what Sankiem is about, like the ethos of the brewery, what you guys have been working on, what you guys have been doing, how you approach the consumers. You know, obviously the branding is gorgeous, and that's all you, and it's just been stunning since the beginning, and it's continued.
Thank
and
you.
it's, I don't know, it's just, I don't know, man. I feel like Nate and I are just such fucking big ass fans. I just feel like everything you're doing is speaking to us. Like, I don't feel like anything that you're doing isn't relevant. I feel like I'm like, oh, Sankiem's got some haze. Oh, that shit is killer. Oh, they got West Coast. That shit is killer. Oh, they got this Stout. This shit is killer. Oh, they got this Belgian. This shit is amazing. Like, it's so, like, I don't know. It's almost like refreshing.
Nothing is forced. Everything is genuine.
Yeah. And it depends what you want. Like, you know, like our Belgian blonde that we recently put out, Diablotin, was inspired by Duvel, and we wanted it at 6%. You have that beer with food, that just spicy 6% Belgian beer with food, like
Killer.
it's insane. So it depends when you're having your beer, what you know, but we try to have something for
every palate and every sort of thing.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like. But once again, it just feels so organic and real and not forced. And not like, all right, this is some sort of marketing company where like we need to target this and this and this and this. Yeah. You're just doing it, and you're doing it authentically and real. And that's, I really truly think that, and I know Nate, you echo this. It's just like, it's so authentic.
It's so
genuine. It's a bit of a wank of a word that's kind of used a little too much, but genuine, authentic, whatever it is, organic. That's what you guys have been doing from the beginning. And it's just fucking cool to see, man. It's so cool to see whether we're, you know, while I'm out here in Montreal and seeing, I know that Chris was doing the drops back then when I was out there and, you know, do them every other week. And it was like kind of rare to get the Montreal drops. And, you know, now with not as physically close, it's just like, it's I'm able to see from online. I'm just like, yo, like this is, it's just so dope, man. I just feel like you guys have captured like a zeitgeist inside of beer that is uniquely you in a way that I don't know if many other breweries have been able to replicate. That's kind of more, I think, what Nate and I are talking about. Like, it doesn't matter what the fuck it is that you're doing. It's at the highest possible level, and I cannot think of another brewery that that has done the same thing, and I just think it's so admirable and so cool and so forward thinking and so valuable to pushing the scene forward and pushing the drinkers forward and welcoming in new drinkers. And the pub is so beautiful and so wonderful, and like the events are so dope, and you're bringing in, you know, you were telling me that you had these different diverse, you know, maybe like a Haitian like a food truck or whatever, and then you'd be like, hey, this Egyptian or Ethiopian restaurant reached out, like, yo, my friend was doing this, like, we want to come through, like, fuck yeah, let's go, you know. And you're just introducing and welcoming all of these different communities, and then that's just expanding craft beer. And I just really feel like you guys are the blueprint. Without bias, I just really feel like you guys are the blueprint, and that's what every brewery should be doing, and it's just a beautiful thing. And I'm proud of you, man. I just think it's fucking dope.
Thanks. I really, really appreciate that. I really appreciate you guys. Honestly, the kind words and everything. It's you know, it's super validating. I think when you know, you're working hard at it, and people see what you're doing, you know, and so I really appreciate the kind words. And we're just, you know, we don't know how to do anything but be ourselves in this business. Like, we open trying to be ourselves, and then we got just COVID, and it was just like, fuck, what do we do? And, you know, we're not doing things super in the most conventional way, even with employees and everything. And now we get people involved, and it just works. You know, we've had people ask us, like, how do you navigate the market? There's a bunch of shit and businesses closing, and we're like, we don't know. Like, we're just doing what we think is right, and we value. One of the biggest things is we value our team. Like, every team member does something that another team member is not doing. Whether I'm doing marketing and I'm the owner, it doesn't matter. If no one's selling the beer or no one's there to greet you when you're at the pub, it doesn't matter what I'm doing. So it's a very, like, team approach to it. And we think we know good beer. We think we know how to achieve those results, and then whoever's joining our team, we can teach you about that stuff. And but we can't teach you about being a good person. And then that whole thing is just gelling. And we're super fortunate, honestly, with everything that happened with COVID, you know, sort of right when we were opening, and people catching on to what we were doing. And I mean, all of this, the beer styles and the meticulous approach, this was all part of our business plan like 7 years ago. And it was just something we hoped we would achieve, because you know, you create this business plan. And, you know, I was speaking about Dogfish Head earlier, and I heard Sam Calagione say one time that there's no bigger work of fiction than your business plan. He was an English major, and it's just like, you know, you never know.
That's great.
But it seems like we've hit a lot of what we wanted to hit and achieve a lot of what we wanted to achieve. And I think, and I was asking you the question of, like, you know, how are we perceived? Because, as I said, when you're doing it, you don't get to experience it. So I'm always curious to know how people experience Saint-Baron. And it's, I think we're really achieving what we set out to, and we think that's the right approach. So we're just going to keep doing what we're doing, you know, keep putting out styles that are a little odd and whatever, because we feel like it's relevant at that time of the year, and that's what we feel like having with whatever meals coming or whatever. And we're always more than happy to welcome people that are along for the ride. So
that's beautiful, man.
Fucking
That's
love
really
that.
all you can ask for with a brewery right now. And like that level of inclusiveness, whether it's sort of like, you know, from palates to backgrounds to whatever, is kind of more important than ever, and just being able to be like, hey man, like we got this cool ass restaurant coming, and this DJ playing, and this band playing, and this blah blah blah. Like it's just, I don't know. I just think it's really important. What you're doing is so important, and the way you're doing it is really important and unique. And I want to see more breweries do it the way that you're doing it, but it's got to be authentic to them in the way that you guys, it's authentic to Sankiam, which seems to be, right? Like I don't think there's nothing about what the fuck you're doing that's like, you know, inauthentic. It's like, yo, well, you're being humble, but like I'm saying, like there's nothing inauthentic. Like you guys are like, this is what we care about. Yeah. So we're gonna do it this way, and you're not doing it for props, for points, for anything.
No. Yeah.
You're doing it because like, yo, like this is what we want to see in the world, and you're putting, and I just think that's like a beautiful thing. Like people always say like the best businesses solve problems that for the owners of those businesses or the creators of those businesses that they want fixed for themselves.
Well, we have a platform, right? It's just we have a platform in our community, and that's just who we are. Like, you know, Dimitri is like a geek, and like he loves being in the lab and working his shit out. You know, what I came from is what I came from, and Steven's family is from all over the place, and we're just, and it's Aylmer as well, right? Like we're this weird little pocket in like Gatineau that's like half and half Anglophone and Francophone, and some, you know, a little multicultural, and you know, we're just trying to be relevant in the Quebec market where we're I don't want to say an odd fit, but you know, we're kind of like that in between Ontario and Quebec Brewery, and so whatever. All we can do is keep being ourselves and doing, you know, what we've been doing. Because honestly, if we cannot do what we want to do, like if the market would dictate that we have to do, you know, a certain style of beer or whatever, we just stop doing it. Like it's not a money grab. It's not a whatever. This is just shit that we're passionate about and we want to keep doing. And we think that that brings a level of, you know, not leadership, but like trust us in what we're doing with the beer and like pay attention to it. And then also pay attention to this other stuff we want to talk about. Since we have your attention, you know, kind of thing. And it's just doing what we feel is right and how we want to see the world evolve. And if small breweries can help do that, then we hope more of them join us in doing that.
Hell yeah.
You know what? Dude. Like if folks can forgive me for being a bit lame, like in your own way, you're making an odd fit a perfect fit. Like really.
Yeah. It's this odd. I mean, you guys have been here. You're in Ottawa. You cross over all the time. Craig, you've been here. Like it's a, is this a French town? Is this an English town? Is it it's a
bit of an in between.
It's a bit of an in between. Yeah,
I didn't feel unwelcome for a second as an Anglophone.
No, exactly, and that's you know.
Yeah, it's like the same as anywhere in Quebec. It was like more welcoming than some other places in Quebec. And it was exactly as you painted it to me when we first met and I hadn't been there. I was like, oh, this is fucking dope. This is like a cool ass town with like this really great, you know, main street with all these beautiful little businesses and cafes and restaurants and all this stuff. I'm like, it's just, yeah, man. It's very welcoming, and it's exactly what every main street in Canada needs. Is a brewery like this to welcome people in and to discover what could be.
Yeah, well, it's a bit of culture in, you know, a little area, and there's, you know, you have those little pockets of culture everywhere. You got little breweries everywhere. So wherever you are, support them. You know, the ones you like, the ones you enjoy. Like, go out and like enjoy the space they've created for you to enjoy those beers. Talk to them about their beers, be curious, and you never know, it might spark an interest in, you know, whatever. It might be marketing, it might be, you know, we talk about it all the time with Link Up. Marketing, design, it can be front of house, back of house, ingredients, can be culinary, whatever. But it's a great cultural hub, I find, and we certainly use our pub in that way. So yeah, we encourage others to do it, and I know others are doing it as well. So it's really cool.
It's a beautiful thing. Brother, we're coming up on 4 hours. This has been an epic pod tonight.
Like,
I kind of
this is coming up on like top 3 longest podcasts right now.
Yeah, there's not too many that hit the 4 hour mark for real. So this has been unexpectedly. Sorry, I expected this to be a bit of a lengthier one because I knew it was going to be great. But dude, this is heartwarmingly beautiful. I appreciate you,
yes.
Jacob, man. Like, dude, you're such a fucking
genuine pleasure.
Yeah, man. Like, Nate and I are like clearly two of the biggest fans of Sankey and Baron, of you personally, and Steven is such a wonderful man, and Dimitri is such a gem I've yet to meet. But it's just everything you're doing is exactly the things that need to be done. So we're just grateful that you exist and that you're doing things in the way that you're doing it. And I just think it's super important. And you know, coming up on 4 years in May, it's a beautiful thing. With that, is there anything we want to sort of take this home on? Like, is there anything that people can expect, being that this pod will probably come out in around 3 to 4 weeks? What could people expect coming May for the 4-year anniversary?
I think probably a more modest anniversary. I think there's stuff that we've been focusing on, and beers that have been in barrels.
Let's go.
Just beers that we like to. I don't know if we will, but beers that we want to present in different ways, like casks and stuff. And we'll try to make it more of a thing at the pub, more so than like you know, this is what we're releasing for our anniversary. Like, we want to. I think last year for our anniversary, there were just too many new recipes that were kind of rushed, and we want to avoid that. We want to take time.
Except Straya.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but so we want to present beers in a different way. We just released like Two Tails Light, which is a 2.5% version of Two Tails, which tastes like fucking 4%. So I don't know. No, there's nothing really out of the ordinary that's up and coming. But we keep working on recipes. We keep trying to be a hub for our community, and just one thing to leave you with: support whoever your local brewery is. If you believe in what they're doing, go out and support them. It's a bunch of hardworking people trying to make a good product, and hopefully people pick up on it, and we definitely appreciate all the support. Really appreciate you guys getting what it is we're doing at 5e Baron. It means a lot, honestly. Like, I've been listening and reading you guys for longer than I've been doing 5e Baron, so I've always been super appreciative of you guys as far as being media for beer even before I was part of the industry. So you guys keep doing what you're doing, and I'll always have all the time in the world for you guys. So whatever you guys want to do this, it's a go. But yeah, thank you, appreciate it,
dude. That means a lot. I appreciate you, and I want to do this every year at the bare minimum. Around kind of I'm sorry we didn't do this more often. I don't know what happened. I think it was just more like, the people that we were closest to, you end up being like, oh yeah, no, we're doing it. Here we are. So I want to do it more often. I just feel like what you're doing is just so genuinely important to the scene, man. And just thank you for everything you're contributing to the scene, and all the different collaborations, whether it's local businesses or people like us, like, be it podcasters, bloggers, or whatever it might be. It's just like, it's just great. I think it's like essentially a community service, and that's what you're really doing. And it's a beautiful thing. And Nate and I have been there multiple times, and I've stayed at your home, and it's, you're all just wonderful human beings, and it's so cool. And all we want to do is see you dominate and win, and just really thrive in the scene. And I feel like you all of the ingredients that are required for that are there, and you're putting it out there, and just, I don't know, it's just all positive to us, and it's a beautiful thing. And thank you for everything that you're contributing, man. Like, it's impeccable.
I can't echo that enough, and truly, we wouldn't be doing what we are doing without you doing what you're doing.
Facts.
Like you're doing it first is the reason that we're doing what we're doing. So
yeah, like, we're just supporting beer, man.
We can't appreciate you and your team and everyone and everyone else involved in the scene enough. So we fucking love you, brother, and we got to do this more often.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys too, man. And like I said, keep shining a light on our industry. It's full of bright stories and bright people, and it's a really cool industry. That's what got me in it in the first place. So, and I really appreciate you guys keeping a light shining on not only us but the industry as a whole, and keep doing it. Like it means the world to us. We see you at Cinquième Baron for sure. Like, you're the media for our industry, and we appreciate that. So keep doing that, and it definitely keeps us going along with our wonderful consumers. So yeah, I really appreciate it, guys.
Best of the best, brother. I appreciate you so much. We really do. Let's take a quick screenshot for the blog post. I want to hold up a couple of cans. What are we going to do? I'm going to have to bust our winter walks. I think all of us are going to have to bust our winter walks out.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Jacob knows the fucking vibes. Jacob, if anyone knows the vibes, it's fucking Jacobian right here. All right, you fucking champions. All right, ready? Wait. All right, ready?
I'm trying to outdo Craig here.
Okay, 3, 2, 1. Beautiful. I even sucked my tongue out. I don't even stick my tongue out. I kind of had a feeling you were, and I looked down. When you did, I was like, Jacob's like, ah! I was like, I've never done that before, but like, fuck it, let's do it. Look, let's wrap up off air, but like on air, once again, Jacob, thank you so much for hanging out and for taking the time, brother, particularly you being sick, and you being sick too. It's a, at times.
We're a fucking mess. We're a fucking mess here.
It's a mess, but you know what? It's Canadian winter, and we deal with this bullshit every fucking year, and here we are. So, Jacob, for you, brother, where can everybody find the glorious, the godly Cinquième Baron online? Or in real life?
Actually, Cinquième Baron, the number 5 EBARON, 5ebaron.com. We just put that online yesterday, so we've got updated beers available to go, so check that out. And then on social media, 5ebaron, and then check us out at the pub at 55 Rue Principale in Aylmer, Quebec.
Gang, love it. Nathaniel?
Everywhere at NathanDoesBeer.
You know the vibes. Guys, thank you so much for watching and listening. If you enjoyed the episode, smash a thumbs up, hit subscribe below, hit that notification bell.
Ding.
So you know when the new drops. Follow us everywhere at BAOS Podcast. Share the long form audio so you can hear attractive gentlemen like Uncle Jacob in Aylmer, Quebec talk about craft beer in Canada. Every week, hit us like them 5 stars on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And guys, we'll see you in the next episode. Get it in you. Behave yourselves. Be good to your mom.